What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining us on Tuesday night. This is episode 75 of Tuesday Night Titans. It is Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. I am your host, JD from New York. As always, joined by my very good friend and co-host who is super excited to finally find out that Commander and the Beast Mortos are sharing a Continental Classic, the one and only, Solomon. So what's going on, brother?
Well, I mean, are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised.
No, I mean, seriously. I mean, you know why Juice Robinson was in the tournament, right?
Yes, he was about to be the Eater of L's. Yes.
Okay. Why is anybody surprised that Commander would be the substitute? You know, he'll go in there, he'll dazzle, he'll have these great matches. I mean, he's in his field with Ricochet and Will Ospreay, and I think Darby is in there. But if he wins more than one match, I'd be shocked.
Now, I wonder if Hologram wasn't injured, would he be in the Continental Classic?
Yes.
More than likely.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. I mean, he was a favorite of Tony's and he got hurt, and Commander would not be, and I think Hologram absolutely would be.
I don't know, man. Buddy Matthews was right there. I don't know.
Well, one thing I can't quite wrap my head around is the fact that Buddy Matthews won a 4-way at Full Gear and beat, among the people he beat, was the Beast Mortos.
I know. So
why is Mortos in and Buddy Matthews is not? I haven't quite figured that out yet. But yes, Buddy Matthews should have been in this tournament.
Oh, don't worry. He's sitting at home with mommy. I think he's fine.
I have no sympathy for him. I'm just saying.
No.
Logically, he should be in the tournament.
I know. What do you think of that fucking song, man? Holy shit. Sidra, I gotta thank you for that song, man. I said it in the chat, man. That is one of the absolute most sexiest guitar solos I think I've heard all year, man. That's a fucking banger.
It is, and he tagged both of us in that the other day, and shout out to him because he's the one who pointed it out to me, and I opened my Raw stream with it last night, and I had people telling me that it sounded to them like one of the old Four Horsemen themes.
I just saw that comment in the chat here too, yeah.
Yes, and I thought about it. I go, you know what? You're right. There was that one version of the Four Horsemen theme before they added the galloping horses from like 98 maybe in WCW, and I can't unhear it now. And I love that Horseman theme, and I love this theme too. That's fucking amazing.
Listen, I think we have our unofficial theme for Tuesday night. We'll be using it individually, but I think that's gonna be opening the show on Tuesdays. I tried for an actual licensed musician to do our song, but I mean that went nowhere. So this is an excellent plan B. So I'm not complaining at all.
No, this is a fine substitute.
Yeah.
So shout out to Sidra. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, brother. That's quite the banger, man. Any more up your sleeve? Please send them our way. I always love some new tunes. But we got a lot to get into, guys. It was a tremendous week of wrestling. Coming off last week's TNT, you guys killed it. We had a steady stream of 3,000 in the chat last week, and it was one of our, to me anyway, one of our best shows. I know we went a little longer than usual, but we never planned to go that long. So we are going to do more of the same here tonight and give you some nice wrestling discussion. Big week, Survivor Series, or SmackDown first, and then whatever happened on SmackDown bleeding into Survivor Series. And then, obviously, that great Monday Night Raw that everybody's still talking about right now, last night from Everett, Washington. We will get into all the big happenings. I'm sure you guys are eagerly anticipating what both Jason and I have to say collectively on this, so we will definitely get into that. We got some AEW news and notes. We got some WrestleMania and Saturday Night Main Event news and notes. Not a really, really busy week as far as news, but as far as what's happened on TV, I think it's enough to whet everybody's palate. So we'll definitely have some fun tonight. And if you guys need to find us on social media and on YouTube, you know where to look. Everything is linked down in the description. If you guys want to support the show, there are a couple of ways to do that. Number one, please hit that thumbs up. It helps us out tremendously when you do so. If you guys are watching after the fact when this publishes to YouTube and you are not watching live, leave a comment. The comments, and any comment, it could be anything. Let us know what you had for dinner tonight, your favorite beverage, what you thought of Big E, getting turned on by his brothers last night on Monday Night Raw, anything. It helps us out in the algorithm.
Phrasing?
What?
Phrasing.
What's phrasing? What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, somebody's recommended this video, they click on it, and the first thing they hear you say is, we'll talk about Big E being turned on by his best friends. I mean, come on now. You gotta watch what you're saying here.
Oh,
kind of
my
stream
God.
is this?
I may have to find a listen, man. He's always calling me out on some stupid shit, man. I wasn't even thinking about
I
that.
don't do it. Who's going to? There's nobody else who's going to.
Where is your mind at, bro? Really, on a Tuesday night?
Look at some of the people we have in the chat. You going to ask me that question?
Oh my God, man!
Wait until we get into the jokes that Sidro has. Then you won't be asking me that question at that point.
Oh my God! Yeah, pause. Jamie, yes, in the chat. Pause. Yes, the turn last night of the new day, turning on Big E. Yes, so we'll get into that. Let me know what you guys think about that. Comments help us out a long way, man. So please go and do that. All joking aside, and super chats, please get them on in. We will definitely hang out with our beverages, as always, at the end of the show. I'm glad everybody is laughing over at this guy here. But, Jason, what do you want to start us off with, man?
Well, better to be laughing with me than at me. Why don't we start with Survivor Series and SmackDown? Let's go back to the beginning of the weekend before we get to what happened here at the end of the weekend.
Yeah.
Because, and actually, maybe it makes more sense, frankly, to go back to Friday. Because going into Survivor Series and going into the War Games match, we had a sit-down with Roman Reigns and CM Punk that was kind of newsworthy, and I have a feeling it's going to be very newsworthy going into 2025. The last time we got a cinematic segment like this, it was Roman and Cody at the 50-yard line going into Bad Blood. Now, this was not as over-the-top as that one was. They had drone shots and dramatic music. Well, I guess this one had music, too. I like the cinematic segments, you know, as long as they don't go too over the top with kind of the campiness. This one I thought was really well done. But really the main thing that mattered was at the end, where we had CM Punk make mention of the fact that Paul Heyman, and he did confirm the only reason he agreed to do this was because it was a favor to a friend of his, and he wanted to get revenge for what happened to Paul all those months ago. But he said there's a favor. And Heyman apparently owes him some kind of a favor. We didn't, we weren't told what it was. Roman Reigns wanted to know what it was, and Paul said, let's just get past War Games, and then we can talk about it. And that set off a whole conversation about what this favor may or may not be now that Paul Heyman owes CM Punk. Now, I have my theory about what it is, but, where do you stand on that, and what was your sense of things coming out of that segment on Friday? Because I just thought it was excellent. I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, I love the cinematic segments when they actually go and do them. It seemingly feels like it's definitely a Roman Reigns thing, as he's been a part of the last two. One with Cody when they built to Bad Blood and that tag team match with the Bloodline. I love the vibe. Some people were saying the music was too loud, dubbed into the final edit. I mean, I wasn't really paying that close of attention. I was just focused on what they were saying verbally to each other. But as far as CM Punk, I think the energy is off the charts with him and Roman Reigns. And I know there were a couple of news articles before Punk even came back to the WWE that Roman wasn't really too fond of CM Punk, and, they didn't really want him back. Things were said when, he was still kind of semi-retired and he was joining AEW, and everybody made a big stink about it. But
it goes back to the needle mover thing also.
Yeah.
If you remember the whole needle mover. This is when Punk, I think, was still in AEW.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the exact comments, but that's where Roman ended up getting a t-shirt out of it. That's the needle mover on it. So, how much of that actually bothered Rome? I'm sure it bothered him. They all have egos. I'm sure it bothered him on some level. I can't imagine today them, working together that there's any sort of real, genuine, lingering heat there. Though I'd be surprised.
No, I don't think there is anything substantial there. Tit for tat, pot shots are taken. So be it. Everybody knows CM Punk is a needle mover, whatever the case may be. They both are. But the fact that they're working together, and they are going to be working together. I predicted last week SummerSlam. I think that's the perfect destination for it. I can't wait. The energy just jumps off the screen. And they are literally a match made in heaven. I can't wait to see how this all plays out. But as far as Paul Heyman and the favor, I said on my stream on Friday, the first thing that I thought of is I always go back to CM Punk wanting a World Heavyweight Championship match. Now, I don't know how Paul Heyman's going to get him a World Heavyweight Championship match unless Roman, some point next year, wins back the championship, and then Punk doesn't get the World Heavyweight Championship and then cashes in because of this Paul Heyman favor and gets a match with Roman Reigns for the WWE title. I don't think we're going to venture down that far, But as far as the favor, I do think that CM Punk is going to try and convince Paul Heyman to leave Roman and become his wise man and be his wise man going into his journey to become the champion, the World Heavyweight Champion at WrestleMania. Now, there was something I heard today from somebody who reached out to me via DM and said, JD, what about this scenario? And it would be if it's Rock and Roman and CM Punk doesn't get his main event and we get Rock and Roman at WrestleMania, does CM Punk cash in his favor to Paul Heyman and then we make that a triple threat match? And somebody came up with the idea because of Rock and Punk playing off the fact that Rock is kind of taking his spotlight away on numerous occasions. I told him I don't really think they're going to go and do that. They're not going to muddy up a Rock and Roman one-on-one match with CM Punk when they have Cody Rhodes, because that would probably make more sense. But I'm leaning on option A, Jason. I think it's him going to try and lure Paul Heyman away to become his wise man and leave Roman, because at the end of the day, I think we both discussed that Roman is not the different man that everybody expected him to be. He is very much, and honestly, he may actually be a lot worse because he has nothing and he's going to try so hard to get back everything he lost. He's the same guy that he was before he lost the title to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna work CM Punk into, in their mind, a big money match like that for the same reasons they didn't do it in 2013.
Yeah.
I thought it should be a triple threat match back then. It should have been Cena, Rock, and Punk. And it's like, no, we have our plan with Rock and Cena. That's the money match. And here we are now over 10 years later. And I think if the opportunity presents itself to do it, it's Rock and Roman. I don't think they're, like you said, they're not going to muddy it up by inserting somebody else in there. And now there's a question of whether or not Rock will even be wrestling on the WrestleMania card. So this may not even be worth having a conversation over. But we could talk about that. But yeah, I mean, I think that obviously Punk and Heyman have a history together. Punk was already the champion when he went heel and then brought Heyman in to be with him. But I think it's something along the lines of when he goes for that champion, whatever championship, but probably the World Heavyweight title. I don't even know that it necessarily needs to be a case where Heyman leaves Roman, because he could just split his time between both shows, but he will want him to be his wise man and help him in his quest to become the World Heavyweight Champion. And that it's perfect in a way, whether he does or not, because going into, let's say, SummerSlam, like you said, whenever we get the eventual Rock or Roman and Punk match, it just feeds into that story so well. It just throws more gasoline on the fire. So when we eventually get there, all this great history now of all this stuff that's gone down, and you got Heyman caught in the middle. So I think it works great that way. I think it's a realistic theory. We'll see, because, Punk made another comment just the other night about, favors that are owed to him. And it's an intriguing little nugget that they throw out there. And they may just leave it there for a few months or 6 months. And then when you least expect it, maybe they'll come back to it. It's that kind of storytelling to me that's fun, because then you can look back on it. We may be sitting here in April or in June, having a conversation here on TNT and go, oh, you know what? Now it makes sense, what Punk said back in December. And I like that. We had a lot of callbacks last night, right? We talk about callbacks and long-term storytelling. Well, that I think could be a long-term story that really plays out in a big way next year.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I don't know what Roman's thinking going into Friday, the character Roman. I doubt that they give us the answer come Friday about what the favor is. But if I'm Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman is in the same building, it's the first question I'm asking. Like, what the fuck's going on with this favor? That's going to bother me, and I don't want that looming over me as we're heading into the biggest season that WWE has all year.
Well, there's another question also that looming is a good word for it, and they really have to tie this up and address this at some point, which has to do with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Kind of a logic gap there that Owens hasn't said a word about Sami teaming with Roman at War Games, but he hates Cody Rhodes for doing the same thing. So I'm hoping and expecting that will also play itself out. And I have a theory on that, if we talk about what went down on Raw last night. So yeah, there's a few things like that story-wise that I think they need to tie up. But there was a point in time in WWE where I would not give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to stuff like that. It just felt like the little things didn't matter. They didn't care. They felt like, well, we could just, it's wrestling and it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And now, we're at a place now where I feel like the little things do matter. And they do leave little Easter eggs for you in some like the backstage segments. And it just makes the shows more fun to follow because you never know what you may see could be important, and it could come back in a major way later on. I don't know about you, but when we were watching Raw back in 2014 or 2019, we weren't seeing shit like that. There was no mind paid to anything like that. But that's what makes it more fun now to follow the shows because these stories feel like they actually do matter. And they might pay off later on. Before, it's like they were booking week to week. The shows were changing on a week-to-week basis and being blown up, and it just felt like nothing mattered. So it's refreshing to feel like stuff actually matters.
Well, I feel like with Triple H, I mean, he's done that pretty much starting, I think we started to see that around Royal Rumble season and then going into WrestleMania season. Remember when Rock beat the shit out of Cody in front of his bus on Monday Night Raw and started whipping him in the fucking rain? There was the big production.
Yeah, Look at you now.
I mean, I can't wait to see that again, man. I missed that.
Look at you now.
That was fucking unbelievable. But there was a production truck in the background that had Steve Austin and John Cena on it. And it's like, and everybody started those rumors about, I wonder if it's going to be like the Avengers coming together to help Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. And what happened? We didn't get Steve Austin, but we got The Undertaker and John Cena helping Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. And then just as of last night, if you watch the Netflix commercial that WWE has dubbed with Travis Scott and the new theme song for Raw, in the promo package that they have put together for the January 6th show, the ending of that video package is Rock and Triple H. I mean, they don't do that shit, for no reason. I mean, they're both going to be on the show, and Rock's going to be on that show. So it's like they're giving you a little Easter egg before we actually get to that show, but we don't know exactly what role that those two guys are going to play. And maybe they hype up the fact that Triple H and Rock had a little confrontation last year going into WrestleMania. We never really got a payoff for that. Maybe this year we get it. I don't know, but I expect both of them to be on that show.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath on there being any sort of like actual storyline continuity as far as that goes, because I just don't know how available Rock will be for a lot of these shows to tell that story. And it's not like he's building to a match, right?
No.
There's not going to be a Rock
unless you're Meltzer.
Well, yes, of course. If you're Meltzer watching footage from 11 years ago and you don't realize it, yes. So I wouldn't hold my breath on that. Rock being on the first Netflix Raw, yeah, I'd be stunned if he wasn't a part of that show. I'm expecting everybody. It's all hands on deck. You're gonna have SmackDown top talent is gonna be there. Roman Reigns should be on there. Cody. You'll have John Cena. I think has he already been announced officially for that show?
I don't think he's been announced officially for that show, okay. But I'm assuming he'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was in some of the advertising, but yeah, I would expect him there as well, Rock. So it's an all hands on deck thing. That's going to be the biggest Raw of all time. I mean, that's the type of effort, I think, and the way they view that show and the importance of that show, that probably will end up being the biggest Raw of all time. I'm expecting some title matches, maybe a title change. I could see Rhea Ripley winning the women's world title back on that show, for example. So it's going to be a big night. Where Rock fits in, I don't know. But again, it's just, especially after last night's show, and we'll get into the specifics of it, in terms of the stories that are playing themselves out now as we go into WrestleMania season. So many times before, this time of year, this month is traditionally a month where a lot of these shows feel phoned in. Last night's show did not feel phoned in. You know what felt phoned in, more phoned in than last night? Survivor Series.
Yeah, what did you make of the tweet that WrestleVotes put out that Survivor Series was done that way by design because it is now setting everything up to come after Survivor Series to set the stage for WrestleMania? I mean, would WWE and Triple H go to those lengths? Because it sounds very bizarre to me to even want to do that for one of your big five, to make it feel mediocre on purpose. Did you believe that report?
No, I don't think they made it mediocre on purpose. I do think that they have some surprises and big angles that they are kind of holding back for probably Netflix at the beginning of January, maybe Saturday night's main event, because they got some big shows coming up. So I do think some things are being planned for those shows. I don't think they went out of their way to say, okay, look, we're just not going to do anything special on this show, and we're just going to, put in the bare minimum effort, and we'll give all predictable finishes, I guess, except for the U.S. title match. And it was some sort of intentional effort to leave people feeling like they didn't, get what they were hoping to get. I don't think it was anything like that. But, I do think that they have some big things planned for some of the bigger shows that are coming up. That I don't doubt that. But yeah, when I read that, I was also like, I don't know about that. And also it just kind of, in a way, felt like an excuse. And I just feel like when you have a show, and I'm not saying Survivor Series was a terrible show, but when you have a show that feels underwhelming, you can call it out as underwhelming, and it's okay to say, yeah, you know what, this show was not what I was expecting it to be, or not as good as some of their other shows, instead of trying to come up with excuses. Oh, well, it was done on purpose that way. Like, I don't buy that. I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah, I found that to be. I just found that to be a little weird. We were all excited going into Survivor Series, and to me, it was a thumbs up show because it's 3 out of 5. I mean, it's not a thumbs down show if you just do basic mathematics there. But as far as the excitement coming out of the show, I just felt indifferent coming out of Survivor Series. I mean, it was fine for what it was, but I was expecting a lot more excitement, maybe a major surprise, but we didn't get any of that, and I'm glad we got what we got on Monday. But we'll get into the Survivor Series discussion as well. Jason, is there anything else as far as the Punk favor that you could possibly think of as far as what the favor is from Heyman to Punk? Because I know we talked about the fact that Punk may lure Paul Heyman away from Roman because Roman's not any different than he was before WrestleMania, and he wants Heyman to be his wise man going into WrestleMania. Anything else on your mind about what the favor could be? Because, outside a championship match or cashing in a championship match as the favor here or taking Heyman away, what else could there possibly be for CM Punk?
Nothing off the top of my head that I could think of. I just think of what is Punk's primary motivation. What has he articulated since he's come back are the most important things to him? He's talked about, I'm here to make money and not make friends. So, okay, that's one aspect of it. Obviously, he wants to face the best. So maybe it has something to do with him wanting that match with Roman Reigns at some point, and Paul Heyman can help make that happen. It could have. I was thinking maybe at some point, if he has a need for the bloodline to kind of watch his back, like maybe he's up against some other rival force, but what would that even be? That seems less likely to me. Heyman doesn't really have anything else to give him other than his knowledge. Again, bringing him in to be his wise man, let's say, in his quest to try to win the championship. He wants to be world champion. He wants to headline WrestleMania, which he's never done, and he wants to be a champion again. There's really nothing else that CM Punk is back for other than that. And right now, Roman Reigns doesn't have a title. So it's not like, you owe me a title match. They're not even on the same brand. So yeah, maybe if Roman wins the championship, I'm going to come looking for a shot. But I don't know. That doesn't fit. That doesn't sound right with me. That Punk would just want to be gifted a title match, right? He would want to fight for it. He would want to earn it. So I keep coming back to what we talked about before, where, you and I go back a long way. I respect you. I was the OG Paul Heyman guy. And when the time is right and he feels like I need you, I expect you to be here right by my side and help me, go on to win the World Heavyweight Championship. Is he going to win the World Heavyweight Championship? Because it sure seems like WrestleMania is looking like CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and neither one of them are the World Heavyweight Champion right now.
No, and I know Punk wants to main event WrestleMania. I don't think that's happening this year, but as far as
what pull would Heyman have? Like what
leverage?
Nothing.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Nothing. How could he do that for him?
I'm drawing a blank. I don't know. Nothing. If he had some kind of leverage with the GMs or something, I could see it. I could come up with something, but nothing else makes sense to me. Just in terms of what would CM Punk want? What makes him tick? What motivates him? We've been through it. I can't think of anything else that Paul Heyman could really give to him. It could just be an IOU. You know what? You owe me a favor. I don't know what that favor is, but you owe me a favor. And so 6 months or 9 months from now, if I think of something, I may come calling for that favor. It could just be as simple as that.
Well, the Bloodline does have plans after Survivor Series, and this is coming from WrestleVotes Radio. They said, and I quote, "We are hearing that the plans for the OG Bloodline are to remain somewhat connected throughout the winter," as you guys saw last night on Raw. And as the group won't be disbanding completely post-Saturday night Survivor Series, it is expected that many in the Bloodline story will be a focal point of the early Netflix Raw shows. So then they go on and say the Usos, Sami Zayn, not CM Punk. He's going to be kind of hanging around doing his own thing. Obviously, he's focusing on the World Championship, and now Seth Rollins has his nose in CM Punk's business. I don't believe that he'll be a part of it, but the 4, with Roman included, that story is going to remain all the way through the winter into the Royal Rumble and things of that nature. So excited to see where this goes, they say. As Saturday night likely won't be the end of either side of the bloodlines. Clearly, it won't be because as we get into the Survivor Series discussion now, the Ulafala is still around Solo Sikoa's neck. So we need a conclusion to that and how we get that back to Roman so that he can go on to WrestleMania and do what he needs to do with it. We will get into that. I don't want to jump ahead here. But going on into Survivor Series, Jason, obviously, I know you and I both reviewed the shows on Saturday night. I thought it was a thumbs-up show, regardless of what the criticisms were of the first hour or so. So I guess we'll start with the women's War Games match. And I think everybody had the same feeling of the match itself, that it was very clunky, it was very sloppy. Let's say the first 25 minutes or so, it didn't even feel like or sound like 18,000 people were there. There were moments in the match that did not really connect, and it just felt very off for whatever reason. But I know you and I discussed this leading into weeks ago about how this did not need a War Game stipulation, how this probably would have been better suited for a 5-on-5 elimination match. It probably would have been a little bit more emotional if that was the case, a little bit more energetic. I think you could do a lot more in a traditional elimination Survivor Series match, sometimes more than a War Games match. My main criticism with the entire thing is, there was nothing that really gave it a sense of it being a war. So the stories didn't come into play until, the later stages of the build here towards the end of SmackDown the last couple weeks. And obviously you got Liv and Rhea, which is basically the main story of all these women here. And they just kind of connected the main stories on both shows into this one War Games match, which to me is fucking lazy. But then they get into the cage. And I know you called it out because I always go back and reference what you say just to see what we're going to do on this show. I said the same thing Saturday and almost immediately at the top. The matches felt... The women, they get out of the shark cage and then they go underneath the fucking ring for plunder. And then it's the same thing all the time. Everybody comes out of the shark cages and goes underneath the ring. It's like... It almost comes off like they're on a manufacturing line and they're just the same. Everybody feels the same. Everybody does the same shit. It's like, how could you differentiate yourself from previous War Games matches when every War Games match that you do is the fucking same and there's no energy to it, Yeah,
the way I described it was it felt like they all were just going Black Friday shopping underneath the ring, looking for goodies. And like in the women's match, and they do it in the men's matches too. We can't just call out the women for it. But in the women's match, literally every single woman who came out of the shark cages went underneath the ring before getting into the cage. So it didn't matter what was going on in the cage with their partners. They could be getting their asses handed to them. Oh, we got to stop. We got to go under the ring. We got to get tables. We got to get kendo sticks. We got to get chairs. We got to get fire extinguishers. And it's just become, and we complained about this years ago with WWE programming, where it just felt very formulaic. And this has turned into a very formulaic type of match where, okay, War Games, so the first thing you got to do is bring weapons. And other companies have their own versions of War Games where you have weapons, or they have weapons already attached to the side of the cage. TNA had the lockdown matches, and I know MLW has done their own form of a War Games match. And so other companies have kind of done similar things. I'm not against the introduction of some weapons into a War Games match, if it makes sense, but to just go to it as just this has become the standard now. To me, it's just so lazy. If you feel like you need to rely on that and you can't do a War Games match without first going under the ring and introducing all of these objects, maybe you shouldn't be doing a War Games match then. And maybe that's why they didn't even, consider the possibility of an elimination match, because if it was some sort of traditional elimination rules match, well, you can't bring weapons in, right? Unless it's no DQ. But if you feel like you can't do the match without it, that's a problem. You're using it as a crutch. And then we can get into, if you're going to use weapons, chairs, whatever it may be. And one of the criticisms, and rightfully so, of this match was that, especially some of the chair shots, look, I'm not looking for people to go in there and hit other people on the fucking head, dead on with the chairs. But if you're going to use stuff like that, and it is a War Games match, you gotta make it look realistic at least. And this was the exact opposite of that. Like it was so noticeable. It was taking away from the match how awful some of these shots looked. And it wasn't just Nia Jax.
18,000 people had the air sucked out of the fucking arena. That's how bad it was.
It wasn't just, it was Nia Jax. It was Naomi. I mean, there were different people who were using the chairs and using weapons. And in a lot of these cases, I'm just sitting here with my head in my hands going, this is fucking terrible.
Yeah.
And so if that's going to be the case, then just don't use them. You know, if you want to use them and make it look good and all right, this is war, and you're going to lay those shots in, then fine, go for it. That's what a War Games match is all about. But it was actually detracting from the match. And I'm looking at this going, this is the worst War Games match I've ever seen.
Yeah, up until that point, yeah, for the first 25 minutes, that's exactly what I was thinking. Where did they go wrong as far as the ending of the match? I don't want to say the match was a complete fucking disaster. I mean, the last 5 minutes or so were okay. When Io and Rhea got in there and Liv got in there, things obviously picked up.
Yeah, but you know what? Even Io, and I love Io Sky. I mean, she's one of my favorites. And in past years, I get a kick out of the whole moonsault off the top of the cage. But like this year, the way I described it was, this is the year where, for me, it became the Kofi Kingston elimination spot in the Royal Rumble. Yeah. Where you go to that well one too many times, and now it almost becomes parody at this point. Oh, we have to have the obligatory Io in the garbage can spot, off the top of the cage. And credit to her, because again, I don't care how many times she does it. You just do any kind of a dive from the top of the cage, let alone with your back turn and a garbage can over your head. She's got a lot more balls than a lot of men do, okay, to pull that spot off. And thankfully she's able to do it and she didn't get hurt. But it's like, okay, are we just going to do this every year? First of all, she's been in every single women's War Games match going back to NXT.
6.
This was her 6th. This was her 6th appearance. So she is like Ms. War Games. But do we really need to have the same spot, every single year? Again, part of the formula. There's a formula in out of these things.
Never mind the same spot. But how many War Games has Bayley been in? Bianca, Rhea, who else? Yes. Candice has been in a few of them.
Rhea, I think this was her 4th, I believe. And with the men too, Sami Zayn. Yeah. I mean, there are some people who we could not have in War Games going forward. Let's get some new faces in there. We see a lot of the same faces over and over and over again in these matches. Actually, I think every single men's War Games match on the main roster has had Sami Zayn in it. He's become like Mr. War Games. I just hate I hate that aspect of what they have turned it into in some ways. And I am all in favor. And I even said this previously. This is nothing new. If you don't have a really good story worthy of a War Games match one particular year, it's okay to skip it. And maybe next year there is no War Games, but then you come back to it in 2026, right? You need to, I think, otherwise you run the risk of it just becoming Hell in a Cell when it was a pay-per-view. To do it for the sake of doing it, if there's no real story there, good story there that warrants it, that's the worst thing you could do. I don't want to see a repeat of what happened with Hell in a Cell, because for years I was waiting for them to please bring War Games to the main roster. And now we have it.
That's my whole point. I mean, I did a whole spiel on my review on Saturday, and I said that same exact thing and made that same exact comparison. Is Paul Levesque in a situation right now? Because I seen it on my social media feed on X, and a lot of people were complaining about he's going to kill the War Games match. He's gonna make it feel like Vince made Hell in a Cell feel. Is this becoming a problem for him? And is he going to address it unlike Vince with Hell in a Cell? Is this something where he can go back and rely on a traditional Survivor Series and fix that aspect of Survivor Series where Vince killed that, and then that gave way to brand versus brand because they didn't really give a shit about the traditional Survivor Series concept? Can he go back to that, make that feel important, and then, like you said, when he needs it, use it, and don't do War Games every single year like he has been doing now?
Yeah. And I don't know how far in advance they need to have this their stories kind of lined up, because the advertising, you need to know if you're going to advertise War Games or not. They were advertising War Games for Survivor Series a few months ago. So there may be some sort of lead time they need on that. But yes, I am fine with that. I am all in favor of skipping a year if there's a year where there's really no need to have a War Games match this year. So we're going to let it lie. And then when we're ready to go back to it, we'll go back to it again. I'm totally fine with that. But you had the Bloodline story last year. You had the Bloodline story this year. I don't know. You may have the Bloodline story every year. Even the Bloodline in War Games, right? It feels like we should probably give that a rest, but it's tough because everything is built around the Bloodline. And there's no indication of it going away anytime soon. We could literally get years more of the Bloodline. So it may not be the last time we see them in War Games. If it makes sense, do it. If it doesn't make sense, I think it's okay to skip a year and not do it. But just the whole aspect of having to go under the ring for weapons and having to do this, and we have to do this every single year. No, you don't. You really don't. Look at Jimmy Uso. You know, when Jimmy Uso came out in the men's War Games match, he was the only guy, or the first one anyway, who ran from the shark cage directly into the ring because his brother was being double teamed on the inside. Yeah. How ridiculous would it have been if he said, "Oh wait, hold on a second.
Yeah, get your ass kicked. I'm gonna go look under the ring for about 3 minutes."
Yeah, I know you're about to be choked unconscious, but let me go under the ring here and see if I can find a chain. You know, like it would have been preposterous. So at least I'm like, thank God somebody ran into the cage. Like that's what a normal human being would do. But the fact that I even had to point that out during my review was just so preposterous. But I felt I had to because he was the first person to just run into the cage. You know, like you're supposed to do.
Hopefully he does have a mindful eye over that, and he is, I know he's probably scouring social media on a few burners, so who knows what he's thinking. So hopefully he did catch wind of what we were saying, because it is a little ridiculous, and it is feeling like Vince made Hell in a Cell feel. Was there anything that he could have done, or the producers, Jason, could have done to kind of rectify how the match came off? Because one of my main criticisms was that you started the match off with Nia Jax, and having Nia Jax in a 40-minute match lasting the entire match isn't really one of her strong suits. I think Nia is built more for, quality over quantity, throwing her power around and beating people up and just kind of doing it in small spurts. She would have been fine maybe 5-10 minutes in the match tops if she came out last or was one of the last ones in the match. Did they make a mistake by not starting the match off with Bayley or Tiffany Stratton or Bianca Belair or Io Sky? How was the pacing to you? Because that was one of my major criticisms as well.
I think it wasn't even so much an issue of who came out first. Yes, Nia coming out first was not the choice that I think I would have made. And you had two women's champions on that team, so you could have had one, maybe Liv comes out first, but they wanted to do it. I get it. They wanted Rhea to be in the ring. Liv comes out last. She's all afraid. That's why they did it that way. Part of the problem also with War Games, and it's an Achilles heel of the War Games matches, and I knew this even, way back when, is that it's very much like an Iron Man match in this way. A lot of fans know that nothing of any great note is going to happen in the first half of the match, because the match doesn't even officially start. You don't hear the bell, and the match doesn't technically start until all 10 people have been called in. You can't even attempt to pin anybody or make anybody submit until all 10 people are in. So you're going to have a lot of the, the usual weapon spots and, throwing people up against the cage and stuff. But people have been conditioned to know, nothing of any great significance is going to happen for probably a good 20 or 30 minutes. And that also could hurt the match. So you really need to, and this is where story comes into it, which they didn't have in the women's match. They at least had in the men's match. But you got it in the men's match too a little bit, where the crowd was kind of quiet. It didn't look like they were terribly enthusiastic or invested in what they were seeing, because they're just waiting for everybody to come out of the shark cages so the War Games can officially begin. You really have to have something to hold their interest in the first half of that match, as you would in an Iron Man match, because people know the match is going 60 minutes. So what happens in the first 30 or 40, you could rack up falls, but nothing really matters until the last 15 or 20 minutes. You have a little bit of that with War Games, and that is one of the weaknesses of the match. I still enjoy War Games, but I think maybe more than anything else, I think that was part of the issue. And also the thrown together nature of the women's match. Outside of Rhea and Liv, it was all about Rhea and Liv.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it also is, I think we felt the same way. Triple H played it safe on Saturday. He had the chance to do some fun things, twists and turns. He didn't do it. And I know what WrestleVote said, again, whether you believe that or not, in the women's match, I thought this is the perfect opportunity for Tiffany Stratton to cash in Money in the Bank. You have both champions in this match. They're all on the same team. And I thought it would have been very clever, actually, if they would have had Tiffany cash in on Nia and have the reveal that Candice LeRae was now with Tiffany instead of Nia. And they kind of go off to be their own pairing, and she's now her lackey instead of Nia's. That was just an idea that I thought would have been cool. But again, Money in the Bank tease with Tiffany. How many times have we had this in the last 4 months? It feels like every week she teases cashing in Money in the Bank, and either she's too afraid to do it or she gets interrupted. And we just got more of the same. The same exact thing in this match. There was nothing creative. There was nothing different about it. She was thinking about cashing in, and then she got sprayed in the face, and that was it. That was the last we heard of any potential cash-in. So there was no attempt to really do anything fun or out of the ordinary, and that, I think, also dragged down the match, because that would have gotten, people excited, and they didn't do it, and I thought that was a mistake.
Yeah, I wish they would have just gotten rid of that completely. I also called out that situation. I mean, they were literally both laying next to each other. It's like, take your pick. Which one do you want to pin? You want to pin Liv? You want to pin Nia? It's right there in front of you, and they didn't do it. Yeah. So outside those things, it was a very rough night for the Women's War Games match. I even said that if they don't do one next year, I would be the happiest guy probably in the entire community. I think they definitely need to take a break from that. Unless the story really calls for it, I think we should just go back to traditional means. Rhea and the spot with Liv off the top rope with the riptide was great through the table. We got the EO spot with the over the moonsault in the trash can. Outside that, there wasn't really anything memorable to the match, and Team Rhea ended up winning. And this is probably going to be served for Rhea to get a championship match, but she's got to wait because EO is getting her shot at Liv at Saturday night's main event. That was confirmed on Monday Night Raw last night. So I think we discussed this not only on our own shows, but even last week. Rhea and Liv, January 6th for the WWE Women's World Championship. I think that's the perfect destination for that. So it's probably going to end up happening. I would absolutely do it then and not wait till the Rumble, because I think the story is absolutely finished at this point. There's nothing more they can do.
If you want to do a title change on that show, that's the most obvious title of any significance, I think, that you could change. I think that's the perfect place for it, because Rumble's not until the beginning of February.
No.
And I think they're at that point now where Rhea's going to wrestle Raquel. Yeah, they brought it back Raquel to be Liv's muscle. And I think the idea always was, okay, Rhea might have to go through her first. Well, she's going to go through her on Monday. And when that happens, the only thing left to do is to get Rhea and Liv back in the ring together. And what are you going to do? You're going to screw Rhea out of it again and then run it back a month later? That's stupid. So I think January 6th is probably the time that it actually goes down. It's too bad because I love EO, and her being in this title match, she's not going to win. Otherwise, she would have been my pick to win the Intercontinental title. But obviously, that wouldn't have made sense to put her in that tournament since she's lined up for a World Championship match.
Oh, yeah, she would definitely be my number one to win that title, she's unfortunately not in there. But Kyrie is in there, and she is probably going to lose to Lyra on her side of the bracket, which we'll definitely get into. As far as the ladies, there has been some back and forth, man. It's almost annoying to see this all the time in the last 7 days or so. WWE and this injury to Jade Cargill and the ideas about the Women's Tag Team Championships being up in the air. Now, this is coming from WrestleVotes on their Backstage Pass Q&A. They are reporting that they are hearing that WWE will indeed strip Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair of the Women's Tag Team Championships. It's unclear when this will happen and how WWE will crown new champions. They say, again, I'm working on nailing down the details, but I'm hearing they're going to have to strip Bianca. Yeah, those belts are cursed. This happens time and time again. I said it, Jason, just in a joking manner, but not really joking. I would just completely abolish the Women's Tag Team Championships. I don't think that they do that because, like you said on a couple of occasions with something else we talked about, as far as the Tag Team Championships and the men's side of things, it would be them admitting defeat. But they're going completely all in on both of these tournaments on Raw and SmackDown. United States Championship, Intercontinental Championship. By the way things look, I think most of the women want to go after those titles and they want to make history with those championships, and they've done and exhausted everything they could with the Women's Tag Team Championships. How do you see them doing this with now Jade injured? And secondly, do you believe she's actually injured? Because I'm actually believing, with all of the question marks surrounding her, that she's not even injured at all. And this is one major storyline that, again, like you alluded to earlier in the show with Triple H, they want to plant some Easter eggs. They want to keep the unpredictability high. I don't think she's injured at all. So what do you think about that? And how do you figure with the Women's Tag Team Championships, what they do with them?
I don't even think you need to officially abolish them. I think you just strip them of the belts and you just keep them on the back burner, and you don't talk about them. You don't talk about them. You don't mention them until the opportunity comes along when the time is right to reintroduce them. Right now, the focus should be on establishing these two new mid-card championships. Everyone's going to want to be going after the U.S. title, the Intercontinental title. Why muddy the water? Now we're going to have another tournament to crown new women's tag team champions. We have 2 tournaments right now that are going on.
You know, he's had more tournaments than Tony Khan has this year. That's it's a pretty big deal.
It's great. I mean, that says a lot.
I know it does.
Tony loves his tournaments. We have one going on right now. So I think you just quietly sort of deactivate them. We know they're going to come back at some point. They're not going to burn them. They're not going to abolish them. But why rush into having to crown new champions? Like, clearly they were on Bianca and Jade, and they were building to something with the two of them. Now, to go to the other question you asked me, do I think she's hurt? There were a couple of conflicting reports this week.
Yes, from our friend Dave Meltzer. Yes, I know.
Meltzer and the Observer floated 3 different theories that he heard from 3 different sources in WWE. I love this. So he claimed in the Observer that he heard from 3 different people within the company, and it was 3 totally different things. One person said she's absolutely 100% injured. Another person said that it was a backstage political issue, and then there was some other theory. And I think it's genius, because now if any of those 3 comes true, Meltzer can claim, hey, he mentioned it first. Mike Johnson on PW Insider said 100%, and he confirmed it with at least one source of his own, Jade is not hurt. That it's all storyline. She's not injured. They had that long list of injuries, which made people think, oh, it might be serious. But he said that was really just to drive home the angle. And according to him, 100% she is not hurt. So you choose who you want to believe. I tend to believe Mike. He's got a very good track record with these things. And I tend to fall into the camp that she's not legitimately hurt, which means they can bring her back anytime they want. Now, they listed a whole bunch of injuries. They can't just bring her back in a week. Obviously, she's going to be out for, I would think, at least a month, right? You want to milk this angle. But I don't know that she's going to miss WrestleMania or anything like that. If she's not hurt, I don't know why she would. So I don't think she's hurt. And I think that they're doing this whodunit. Can it somehow lead to Bianca against Jade? If it turned out that Bianca was the one who attacked her, but to me, that just doesn't make any sense. That makes absolutely no sense to me.
Well, never mind that. I mean, when I think we talked about this last week. Naomi, Bailey, I think, any one of those are a more suitable option than Bianca. I think there is a way to make Charlotte. I think there's a way to make Bianca the culprit here as far as her attacking Jade. But, I'm listening to you speak here, and I'm reading this report from WrestleVotes about them stripping the titles from Jade and Bianca. How about, Dave, both of these stories kind of coincide with each other? She's not injured, but they created an angle in a story to get the belts off of them so they don't have to beat them, because there's nobody else right now because everybody's competing in the tournament, and they're just going to do like you suggested. Just let's kind of slowly make them invisible and put them on the back burner, and nobody's going to notice because we got these 2 shiny new titles. I think both of these stories kind of coincide with each other. She's not injured, and they're just going to take the belts off them and make them disappear for a little bit.
Well, think about it. Like, who would beat them? If you were going to beat Bianca and Jay, they lost to Alba Fire and Isla Dawn back in June, and then they quickly got the belts back. Who would even beat them? Like, what teams do they have? I thought it might be Liv and Raquel, right? And then that didn't happen. Who realistically would they put in there and actually be okay with beating Bianca and Jade? I can't think of any team they have right now, any 2 women that have been teamed up.
Well, just based off the number of women that they have, or the fact that everybody's in these tournaments right now?
Well, I mean, a combination of everything, but I mean, just in terms of women who would want to challenge or have teamed up recently that have a high enough status that you could see pinning Jade Cargill or Bianca Belair. I just think they didn't want them to lose. They don't have any teams in mind, as far as, the a choice to beat them. I don't think they want to pin them. And like you said, having them forfeit the titles is a way around that. They don't have to be beaten, technically. And then you could just forget about it and then just go on with whatever your plans are. So you might be right. It could be a little bit of both. But I just don't think there's a serious injury that the angle was done to cover for, which is typically the case. You know, we see that in parking lot angles. You know, in Rhea Ripley, when we found out about the orbital socket injury, they did an NXT parking lot injury angle where she got attacked by Liv and Raquel off camera. So it's not like we haven't seen that before. But, you know, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, strip them of the belts, and that way they don't have to be pinned. They don't have to be beaten.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. I'm kind of leaning towards that. I think Dave is getting faulty information for whatever reason. I don't know.
Three people.
Three people.
Three different sources.
I think their narrative is to make him look as stupid as he could possibly look stupid. So
Mo, Larry, and Curly apparently have the three sources.
I don't know, man. I feel sorry for Dave, man. Hopefully next year's a lot better.
Oh, I don't doubt for a second that they're feeding him misinformation. It's just a matter of whether or not he falls for it. And it just seems like, you know, at least a few times this year, it feels like he has, you know, more than maybe at any other point that I can remember. So I have no doubt in my mind that they have people feeding false information to throw him off.
He might have ousted himself as an advisor to Tony Khan as well this week. I don't know if anybody picked up on that.
But isn't that any week though? You just look at some of his tweets.
I know.
Some of them are head scratching.
I know. Was this head scratching to everybody? Shinsuke Nakamura defeated LA Knight for the United States Championship in what I thought was a basic SmackDown match on pay-per-view. Granted, it was great to see the United States title and LA Knight on pay-per-view for a second month in a row, or PLE rather. But as far as Nakamura is concerned, I know this one went over well with the Nakamura side on social media, Jason. With me personally, you know, I was a little miffed by this decision. Now, to start off positive and not start off negative, I think Nakamura's new look is fucking great. I think the mask and the whole samurai, dead samurai look fucking great. I think Mr. Barker, who did Rhea's mask, did the same thing for Shinsuke Nakamura, made his design and his mask. Fucking unbelievable work the guy does. But as far as the outcome, I was a little taken aback by the decision because Nakamura, I think, is just used goods at this point. Like, we tried and tried and tried, and nothing really sticks. He's had his feud with Seth Rollins. He was made to look like a loser. He had his feud with Cody. He was made to look like a loser. He didn't really get any solid footing for himself for a lot of this heel run. Even when Vince was booking him, he was just booked into oblivion. Now he comes back with a cool gimmick, a cool look. He's got the same style vignettes with the Japanese dubbing over it. He's talking Japanese English translation underneath, which is great. But there was no reason why he attacked LA Knight, or no reason that I'm understanding that he attacked LA Knight. He goes after the United States Championship, and we put him in a position to almost have to win the championship because we can't beat him again after just coming back to television. So it's like they booked themselves into a corner. On the flip side, LA Knight didn't really do much with the United States Championship. And if you wanted to take, and this was my point, if you wanted to take the United States Championship off of LA Knight, you had Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, who fucking busted their balls for this best of 7 series. Any one of those guys would have been suitable United States champions, but here we are giving it to Nakamura. And a lot of people did not understand why I was upset about this creative decision, because a lot of people were like, well, they're just going to put it back on LA Knight. I'm like, that's the fucking problem. It's like, you're going to take the belt off of somebody who didn't really do much with it to only put it back on him, and then we'll be right back to square one with Nakamura, and he's going to end up being a loser anyway after all this is over. What did you make of this, and how do you make the Nakamura United States Championship decision, how do you make good of that to the audience who might be a little on the fence about it?
I don't know if you can make good, with it. You're either a Shinsuke Nakamura fan or you're an LA Knight fan, and if you are someone who just sees Nakamura at a certain level, you're probably not thrilled that they took the title off of LA Knight. And if you're a Shinsuke Nakamura fan, then you're happy for the guy, right? He hasn't been a champion in 5 years in this company, and this is pretty much as good as it's going to get for him. When you're booked and portrayed at a certain level, this is what happens. You know, when Nakamura first came in to NXT, it was a big deal. I mean, I was in Texas, in Dallas, for that first NXT show when he wrestled Sami Zayn, and It felt like a rock star.
I think I watched that match back about 6 times that week, and it was so good.
Being in the building for that was something special. I mean, it felt like a rock star had just arrived. And this is not the same Shinsuke Nakamura. Obviously, he's a lot older now, but they had opportunities at different points to, make him a world champion, and it didn't happen. And then after a while, they started using him as almost like a utility player. And this is what happened with Dolph Ziggler, and this is what happens with certain people in the company. When you're used in that position long enough, that's how you're viewed. And now they want to do something with him. And instead of making it feel like they're trying to elevate him, the perception is that it kind of pushes LA Knight down. That's more how it comes across to me anyway. Looking back on it, I mean, I wasn't, happy with the decision necessarily, but I also was like, all right, you know what they're probably doing here is they're probably going to give him a short run, and then LA Knight's just going to win the belt back. And not like we haven't seen short title runs before. My issue with it is LA Knight will win the United States Championship back, and they're going to be in the same boat they were in before with LA Knight. You said with Shinsuke. I don't even care about that. Shinsuke is going to be at the level that he's at. I accept it. Nothing is going to change there, right? I think his music is badass. I love the remix music they have for him. I like the new look. That's great. He is at the level he is going to be at. That's it. LA Knight, though, is going to be in the same position he was in, where he has no credible heel challengers for the U.S. title. This was already an issue. This is why they brought back Nakamura, who was off television since April, and in the span of 2 weeks, they gave him a U.S. championship match. That's how they built up a contender for the U.S. title. There's no other credible heels on SmackDown for him to really feud with. I described it as when he was feuding with Logan Paul was his Joker to LA Knight, his Batman. He doesn't have that. There is nobody like that on the SmackDown roster on the heel side right now that I could see, if he wins the belt back, engaging with him in an interesting feud going into the Rumble, going into WrestleMania. Who is that person? Who's that person going to be? Who's that heel going to be?
Chad Gable.
Well, Chad Gable's not on SmackDown, and if you are going to tell me Chad Gable, based on the way he's been booked, you're out of your fucking mind.
Well,
okay?
they have lax...
You may as well go in Nakamura if that's the case.
They have lax brand split rules from this point on.
Look, I like Chad Gable as much as the next person, but be realistic, okay? It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're going to sit there and tell me that you honestly believe that there is the possibility that Chad Gable will be traded to SmackDown and then be pushed at a level where he actually beats LA Knight to win the United States Championship when all he does on Mondays is lose to everybody?
Well,
He's a loser. He's a loser.
I could have said Giovanni Vinci.
You could have, but that would have been even dumber had you done that. He can't even get on TV unless he's in the background waving hi. He's even worse. I was talking about Pete Dunne last night on Raw and what they're doing with him, the stuff with R-Truth right now. And I said, well, you know what? At least he's getting television time, barely, but he's on TV. Vinci is not. That's not saying much because I hate what they're doing with him in Truth right now. But look, I love Chad Gable. You got to be realistic. You got to be honest with yourself. That's not going to happen. Now, had he been built up, yes, Chad Gable is United States champion. It sells itself. American made. U.S. champ. Makes all the sense in the world to me. If you did that right now, it would be ridiculous. Because you have LA Knight, who's still very popular. You have Chad Gable, who is a perennial loser. It's all he does. He never wins anything. I was surprised. I think the Creeds won a match on TV a couple weeks ago. Gable wasn't in the match. That's about the only time they could win, is when Gable's not really involved. I mean, Gable, we still have to get Gable and Rey Mysterio one-on-one. I'm hoping he can at least beat Rey Mysterio. I'm not even sure about that. That's not a realistic. You got to put that out of your mind. That's not going to happen. Now, had they traded Drew McIntyre to SmackDown, I would say, okay. I mean, some people might look at that as a step down for Drew, but I could see Drew McIntyre, LA Knight. Maybe that's a thing. But Drew's back on Raw now. So I don't know what they're going to do there, but if they put the belt back on LA Knight, as I figure they will, they still have a very big issue there. They don't have that obvious person for him to dance with that I look at and go, okay, that's the guy. I'm not even sure Carmelo Hayes was that guy or Andrade, but that ship has sailed, right? He already beat them. He beat Escobar. He's beaten a bunch of people. Who is that other person? I don't know. Kevin Owens and LA Knight could have a great feud at some point, but Owens is doing bigger things right now. The U.S. title would be a real step down for him right now. So I just don't know who that person is.
Anybody in NXT that you could think of off the top of your head that would fit that role? I mean, Ethan Page is jumping off the page to me, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan Page and LA Knight could be something. Again, it would take time to build him up, though, on TV. I don't think you just put Ethan Page on TV and, a few weeks later, he's the United States champion. It's something that would have to be built up, but I could see that. I mean, Ethan Page gets shit from some people. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's the most exciting personality they have in the company, but, his work is fine, and I think his promo skills are certainly better than a lot of other people's. And so he and LA Knight having promo battles on the microphone, I think that could be fun. I could see that, but that's still months away, though. If he wins the belt back, let's say in January, who's up? Who's on deck? Who's next?
Chat is saying AJ Styles. Listen, I want AJ Styles back just as much as everybody else does, but I mean the injury was supposedly serious. And then people are mentioning Penta because he's a free agent, and I do see him going to SmackDown if that's the case.
Yeah, but Penta though, do you think they're going to really push him hard out of the gate if he can't really cut promos? I mean, I think that's going to be an issue for him initially in WWE.
Yeah, it's going to be an issue.
It's going to be an issue. I mean, I think over time, maybe if they pair him off with somebody or they establish him to the audience, we talk about the vignettes that they do with Nakamura. I don't know if they want to do stuff like that with Penta. To just debut Penta, though, and LA Knight's a babyface, so would Penta be a heel? I loved heel Penta and Lucha Underground. I'm not saying it can't work. I just don't see them putting him on TV and immediately vaulting him into a position like that. People said AJ Styles. You really want to see AJ Styles and LA Knight again? Didn't we already have that this year?
Or AJ Styles and Nakamura and the battle of the fucking dick punches again?
Oh,
sure.
My God. God. That was so disappointing. And
my God.
That was 2018. I don't know that it's going to be much better in 2025.
No, I think we're Obafemi. Listen, whatever. I mean, sure.
Obafemi's great.
I know.
Obafemi's great. You know what? Yeah, maybe Obafemi.
All right, there you go.
Obafemi, unlike Penta or any of these other people that you're mentioning, Obafemi is somebody who, if he debuted on SmackDown like week 1 and he laid waste to LA Knight, he'd be established. Because that guy, I mean, he just looks like a monster. He's big, he can talk, he looks intimidating, he can work. Like, he checks all the boxes. And we've had these monster pushes that people have had before where right out of the gate, they attack somebody big, maybe they win a championship. I can't see that with most, but with him, I could definitely see that.
It is going to be interesting to see play out because you are correct. I worry about more Nakamura going back. It's like, what are we doing? We're wasting our time. Nobody really has any sort of investment in him. But I think the more prominent question is, if LA Knight does win the championship back, who is his Joker? And there's nobody.
Well, Ken's got a great suggestion. And I didn't think of it because he's so tied in just with bloodline business. But what about Jacob Fatu?
Yeah, I mean, you get a thumbs up for me on that, sure.
Yeah. I mean, as long as, it's not just where he's Solo's enforcer and just solely focused on, other family people. I mean, I'd like to see him branch out too, but of course, it's a no-brainer that he's going to be a singles champion at some point. So, yeah, Jacob Fatu and LA Knight, he brings the U.S. title, into the bloodline. Not that the bloodline needs all the gold or anything like that. But sign me up. That works too. But the Obafemi idea is interesting. You want to introduce him in an impactful way. That would be one way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of championships, Braun Breaker, Intercontinental Champion. Sheamus and Kaiser triple threat match. This was my personal match of the night on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. And Braun Breaker retained the Intercontinental Championship. Sheamus I still think he's going to go after the title. I do. I feel like there's still obviously a desire there. There should be a desire there to fill that void on that championship. He's just never won. That's eluded him. But as far as where we go now with Braun Breaker in the Intercontinental Championship, Kaiser's still in the picture. Kaiser wants to break out on his own and needs to prove himself to Gunther. Gunther's got his own problems going on right now, and his self-confidence isn't really where it needs to be. Braun Breaker, I mentioned this, and this may now be changed because I loved my idea last week that I had brought to the table about taking the belt off Braun Breaker at some point early next year, giving it to Sheamus, and then having Sheamus go into WrestleMania with the championship, and then here comes Big Bronson Reed, and you make him the Intercontinental Champion, because I cannot see WWE not putting a title on him within the first 6 months of 2025. Now, that may be out the window if you guys saw the, I don't know how I came across it, I just did, the TikTok video where it slowed the fucking tsunami off the cage. Jason, did you see this at all, and how his ankles came down?
Well, I saw the still images of the right ankle.
Yeah.
And it did not look good.
No. So I think my idea may be out the window there. So we don't really know what the diagnosis is on Bronson Reed. Triple H says he's a little banged up. It looks like he's going to be home for a little bit.
Nah, he said he's going to be questionable for a few weeks.
Yeah, sure.
I said, you're being awfully generous when you say that. Few weeks. Yeah, well,
sure. Mr. Levesque doesn't have his medical degree, obviously, but I don't know where we go with this, but as far as this match is concerned, this was easily the match of the night to me. It was a part of the show that needed an injection of energy because they were mostly lifeless for the women's match up until the end, then the Nakamura night match up until the decision, and people popped for that. But this match really got everybody going, Jason. This was a tremendous triple threat match, probably the best triple threat match that WWE, I can't think of anything else this year. I'd say this is probably the best triple threat match that they've done all year.
Well, I mean, to me, it reminded me in a lot of ways of the triple threat we had at WrestleMania last year, which had Sheamus, McIntyre, and Gunther. And you just had these three guys in there beating the crap out of each other. And that's really what this match was. This was the first great thing on the show. It certainly woke the crowd up. And it was just, I was so happy they had the chance to go out there on a PLE and do this, because so many times the Intercontinental Championship is relegated to TV. This was the first time we saw that title defended since SummerSlam on a major show. And those guys went out there and they killed it. They had the match of the night. Sheamus, my God, he had these bloody welts all over him from those shillelagh shots from Kaiser. You got Breaker, that one spot outside the ring where from off camera, he just flew in like a wild gargoyle and knocked down Kaiser. And just these guys, they went out there and they killed it, and they had a great match. Sheamus was the one who took the pin. If I was surprised about anything, it wasn't that Breaker retained. It was that Sheamus was the one who got pinned, and they actually protected Kaiser in that way. But they protected Kaiser because it looks like he's going to be up next to get a championship match. I think the plan should be, and it still absolutely can be, Sheamus at WrestleMania trying to get his moment. He'll have to fight his way back. But Sheamus against Breaker, one-on-one, no triple threats, no fatal four-ways, just one-on-one. And you're going to get a great match out of it, and you can get a great moment out of it, too. They love creating moments at WrestleMania. This might be really the last great moment that I could think of for Sheamus, just because he's accomplished everything else there is to accomplish. He's won virtually every other championship there is to win, every accolade. And this means something to him. They've told this story. They have to they could really harp on this even more. You know, growing up, this is what he wanted to be like Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect and Randy Savage and Razor Ramon and all these people who held this championship. And it's eluded him his entire career. And you do Breaker and Sheamus, it writes itself. So after Kaiser, if there's going to be some intermediary, feud for Braun Breaker, I don't know offhand who that would be, but yeah, you can come up with one or two challengers for him. And then Sheamus has to earn his way back into contention. Now, unless the only thing that could blow this up is if we were going to get Braun Breaker and Bill Goldberg. If Goldberg's going to have his retirement match at WrestleMania and they want to do that match, I could see them maybe wanting to get the belt off Breaker before then. Outside of that, I'm all in favor of Breaker and Sheamus and the Sheamus redemption arc.
Well, if they go Goldberg and Breaker for WrestleMania, Sheamus wins the championship before that. I'm going to say the same thing again like I told you before. How about we go Chad Gable?
You and Chad Gable, man.
Chad Gable and Sheamus at WrestleMania.
Oh, okay. I thought you were pitching Chad Gable as an opponent for Bill Goldberg.
No. Chad Gable going after the Intercontinental title and winning it at WrestleMania.
I'm not saying I wouldn't want to see it.
I know you want to be on board with it, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yes, but you're being delusional, I think. It's just not. They've beaten it out of me. Like they have convinced me. I was a cheerleader for him for so long, and I thought maybe they're planning it, but they're just waiting and they're building to it. And then I realized in the last few months, they're not building to anything with Chad Gable. Certainly not for any championships. So I would love to be proven wrong, and I'm not saying that wouldn't be a great match, but no. That is not something that I see happening.
Well, hopefully Bronson Reed is not as injured as everybody is fearing, because I think that would be great. And man, does he deserve that? But yes, Braun Breaker still the Intercontinental Champion. Sheamus, I can't see why he would give up on his dreams of chasing that. So we'll see how that plays out. But that was easily the match of the night as far as we are concerned. World Heavyweight Champion Gunther defeated Damian Priest in what I thought was a very old school, traditional, just kind of wrestling match. It wasn't anything too crazy. It was very similar to what they did at SummerSlam.
Psychology 101.
Yeah, they sold the shoulder, and then Gunther obviously had his self-confidence issues coming into this thing, pre-shoulder that is. I thought this was very good, very old school. Nothing too crazy here, but I think the ending, Jason, was a little too predictable, and I think we both called it on Tuesday, and I'm sure we said it both on our ends as well. Balor was always going to get involved. They've just been teasing Balor and Priest, not finished yet, coming out of Bad Blood. We were wondering where they were going with that. And Balor cost Priest the championship. And then he also pissed off Gunther in the process, because as we saw last night on Raw, Gunther told Balor that he took something very important away from him, and he needed to do that himself because he's been struggling himself. And Balor just kind of interjected himself into Gunther's business. So with Gunther retaining the championship, it was now announced that at Saturday night's main event, we're getting Gunther versus Finn Balor for the World Heavyweight Championship, which is fine. I think we all kind of knew where they were going with that. But now with Priest out, because they showed an exclusive on .com, he was attacked backstage after Survivor Series. He was not on Monday Night Raw last night. So I think we can all see where this is going at Saturday night's main event. Balor's going to get a championship. There's absolutely no reason not to think that Priest is going to get involved there. He's going to fuck Balor over, and Gunther's going to retain. And then Adam Pearce is probably going to throw his hands up, need a drink, and say, all right, I'm tired of all this. Gunther wants to win one-on-one. Balor and Priest want to get their hands on each other. Everybody gets a triple threat match, and we do it on Monday Night Raw, January 6th in Los Angeles, and then we just move on from everything that's going on here. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the way I think it's all set up right now. There's no reason that Damian Priest would not get involved in this Balor match, because he's already been screwed twice by this guy.
Yeah.
He would look completely weak and just like an absolute geek if he didn't throw it back at Balor and get back at him by costing him the championship. So that seems very obvious. And then a triple threat is the only natural way to go here. And then I think that'd be a great match. No reason to think that Gunther would not come out of it still with the World Heavyweight Championship. And then you go into the Royal Rumble from there. We'll see how the title situation plays out going into WrestleMania. But yeah, everything that you laid out right now, it's predictable, but I think that's exactly what they're going to do with this. And then out of that triple threat, when they both fall to Gunther, we'll probably get that one big payoff match between Priest and Balor early next year, maybe with some kind of a stipulation. The Judgment Day stuff is interesting, because what we saw last night was not only did Balor go after Gunther, after his match with Dom, gave him 3 double stomps, but Balor kept looking over at Dom and calling him kid, watch how it's done. I'll teach him. And maybe we talked about this last week, the possibility of seeing Dominic as a leader of the Judgment Day.
Yeah, we did.
And I'm looking at this and I'm going, this feels to me like Balor is going to be kicked out of this group, and Dominic may well take over as the leader. And Dominic will initiate the excommunication here, because if Balor keeps treating him like a kid and talking down to him like he did last night, it's going to blow up in his face.
Well, did you see or rather hear the babyface reactions that Dominic got last night during his match with Gunther?
I saw. I heard some of it. Yes,
yeah.
I heard some of it. I thought he was going to get more of a beating actually from Gunther than he did, but yeah, he was throwing it back at him. He was chopping him and stuff, and then obviously he lost. But yeah, especially after last night, now it feels more likely to me that that's what ends up happening here. And everybody is casting doubts on Balor and his decision making. Liv Morgan last night, are you sure it's the right thing to do? And he's telling her, yeah, and if you had done what you were supposed to do, you would have beaten Rhea at War Games. And so what was his new catchphrase when you listen to Finn, everybody wins, or the Judgment Day wins, or whatever it is. So he's full of himself. I think he's getting bounced soon, probably after he fails to win the world title. And I could absolutely see Dominic now taking over as the new leader of this group.
Yeah, I think that's where they're going for sure. He's got to lose those tag team championships too. Him and McDonough are probably, I think Pierce mentioned something about next week. I don't know if that match is going to take place next week, but the sooner the better for those.
Yeah, he mentioned the War Raiders, and obviously they're building to a rematch. I didn't hear next week, so I don't know. They announced 3 matches for next week. That wasn't one of them, so I don't know when they're going to do that, but you would have to think when if they're to do that match again, if the War Raiders don't win the belt there, I just don't know what the fuck. I don't know what to say to that. Like they have to win these titles in this next match, do they not?
They absolutely need to lose those titles.
Yes. Okay. So we're in agreement on that.
There was a little bit of a discussion. I don't know what website I read it on today. It might have been SE Scoops or WrestlingNews.co. There was the post-match attack with Balor giving Gunther the 3 coups de grace last night on Raw, and everybody was thinking, well, is Gunther going babyface? I didn't really get that sense. Did you get that sense at all? And being that they're both heels getting a championship match?
No, and you got to look at Gunther in the way he's been presented. He's not presented like your traditional heel champion in WWE. He's very honorable in that he doesn't cheat. He doesn't take shortcuts. He doesn't, have people interfering on behalf of him.
It's like Bob Backlund.
Well, Bob was out of his fucking mind. I mean, he was just crazy. Like, I don't think Gunther can recite the names of all the presidents in order from first to last.
I don't know why I thought of Bob Backlund there, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know why you did either. That was kind of weird. But no, he's not going babyface. It's just for the purposes of this program or this match that they're going to be doing at Saturday night's main event, you have 2 heels, but Gunther, I think, will be the one, if any, who gets cheered as the babyface in that match. Is he going babyface? Is he going to be presented any differently? No. It's just how he is. He doesn't like the fact that Balor got involved in his business. He was down in the dumps. He was doubting himself, and he wanted to go in there and do it by himself. And Balor took that away from him, and now he's going to take it out on him. And you're going to have people who cheer Gunther anyway because they just think he's cool. He's like the final boss here, and I love how he's presented so radically different than we're so accustomed to seeing people like that, top heels, presented in this company. To me, it's refreshing. There's nobody like him. There's really nobody like him in that company. Although I'm starting to see some similarities of Braun Breaker. And I did point this out last night. It is a little strange that at the moment you have your 2 top champions on Raw who are basically heels. But you've got Breaker, who's being positioned for a match with Kaiser, who's definitely the heel in that. And you've got Gunther, who's defending the title against Balor, who's definitely the heel kind of in that situation. And that makes it a little weird. It's a little awkward. I think the crowd reactions will lean towards the champions when those matches take place, but they really are not baby faces. So that's a little strange to me that it's kind of like heel on heel. But Breaker, I think, is being cheered, feels like by half the crowd anyway when he's out there, just because the stuff he's doing is so cool. How could you root against him?
Yeah, it's definitely an odd dynamic, but I think they trust, especially Breaker in that situation, to kind of steer them towards the babyface side of things. So at the end of the day, it probably won't matter, even though they're both probably heel backstage on the internal line sheets. So who knows? I think whatever they got going on with Breaker's great. Gunther, I didn't really think of him being like, cheered because he's honorable. I always think of him as like the pompous, cocky heel, but we haven't seen that as of late, but we'll get back there.
The crown jewel, I mean, he had a match with Cody, he lost, and what did he do when the match was over? He shook the man's hand.
Yeah.
It's honorable to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, he may insult people and insult their families and call them street trash in promos and try to get under their skin and say that his favorite wrestler is Bill Goldberg, but, I mean, when push comes to shove, the mat is sacred. And, he goes in there. It's all about respect. And if you beat him clean, he'll respect you back. But It's not like he's in there choking people and using weapons and stuff. It's just, with him, it's all about respect.
I love it. It's one of my favorite types of performers for sure.
And we should point this out now because this was in the news today, that it appears he either has re-signed or is in the process of re-signing with WWE a new multi-year deal. So,
yep. Fightful actually reported that. Yeah, those that Fightful spoke to claimed the deal was a long-term multi-year deal and that the company has been thrilled with Gunther's performance in the ring and at media obligations. One WWE higher-up referred to Gunther as among the most professional talents that they've ever worked with.
It's pretty high praise, and he certainly doesn't have any reason to go elsewhere, so...
It is amazing to think that if, you know who was still in charge, he'd probably either be demoted or, worst case, fired. He probably won't even be there right now.
No, I wouldn't say fired. I mean, look, you got to remember when he first won the Intercontinental title and beat Ricochet, Vince was still in power. I think it was right before Vince was gone the first time. So he was going to get that push out of the gate. Now, would Vince, if he was still the head of creative, have kept him undefeated for so long? Would there have been this sustained push for him? No, I think he would have gotten bored of him. And he might be dancing with R-Truth right now. Who knows? So I'm sure that push would not have been as sustained as it has been. But I don't think it would have been a case where he wouldn't have seen any value in him and he would have just been disregarded. He would not be in the position he's in now. But he was pushed pretty hard even at the beginning there when Vince was still in charge.
What was the report back in the day when we heard that chatter going on that it was what did R-Truth play Uncle Sam on like a Memorial Day episode of Monday Night Raw or 4th of July episode of Monday Night Raw, and he was upset with Gunther's performance during that segment? You remember that
I have
report?
No memory of this. What's Uncle Sam?
Yeah, he came out dressed as Uncle Sam in a Gunther segment. Yes.
And Gunther was in the ring with him while he was dressed as Uncle Sam. I have no memory of this whatsoever. Maybe it was so horrible I tried to block it out of my mind.
I'm sure it was one of those weeks where we ranted on Raw, yeah.
I mean, just you describing that to me sounds fucking terrible. So, I have no memory of that.
It happened. Chat, back me up on that. I vividly remember that. I don't know why, but I do. But yes,
I don't know why either. That's a good question.
Gunther's getting the bag, and it's deserved so. He is.
Look, Gunther is living the life, man. He is on top of the world. He's the world heavyweight champion. He's in the best shape of his life. He's married to Ginny. He just had a kid. He's making good money. What's not to love if you're him, right? I mean, he's on cloud nine right now. He's got it made.
He certainly does. And we got it made with this storytelling here going into the main event. We got the Bloodline OG with CM Punk against Solo Sikoa's Bloodline, the Tongans, Jacob Fatu. And this match, I believe, Jason, I said this on Saturday night, this probably was the best men's War Games match on the main roster that they've done so far. Bronson Reed added a great look to the Bloodline on Solo's side. He had that great spot off the top of the cage, which we just alluded to earlier, kind of fucked his ankle up. Hopefully it's not as bad as everybody is making it out to be on social media. But the interactions between Punk and Roman and the little subtle shots they were taking at each other, Roman not helping Punk up, and then them shaking hands at the end, and, that spot where Punk kind of grabbed Roman off the table at the last split second before Bronson Reed came down with that tsunami was a great visual. If he was a millisecond late, Roman Reigns would have been fucked up.
I wonder if that's why he came down the way he did.
Yeah.
I wonder if he would have come down more flat instead of straight down on his legs. If Punk had pulled Roman off that table a little bit sooner, and I wonder if that maybe impacted the way he came down.
Yeah, it could have certainly been that way, but at the end of it all, I do stand behind what I said. It was probably the best men's War Games match that we've seen so far. A little samey compared to the last few years that we've seen, but I think going into this one had the most richest of stories. And then the ending, obviously, I guess we all got worked, and I think WWE did this on purpose by design. They wanted you to believe that something was happening, but then they just left it as is. And then we got Paul Heyman, standing outside the War Games cage, and he was hugging everybody. CM Punk hugged him and said, I'm owed that favor. And Paul Heyman was like, whenever you need it, it's yours. And Roman exited the cage last, and he put his hand on Paul Heyman's face, and he tapped him like he was fucking in a scene out of Goodfellas or Casino or something like that. They walked away, and the camera just lingered and lingered and lingered. It was making you think that somebody was going to fucking turn on Roman, they were going to turn on Punk, or The Rock was going to come out, and nothing happened. And that's the way Survivor Series went off the air. But I thought this was a memorable enough match with the story going in and then coming on out with all the question marks that we have and the cliffhangers. I thought they did a great job with the Men's War Games match.
Well, I mean, I certainly enjoyed the Men's War Games more than I did the women's. It was obviously the superior of the two matches largely because it had this great story, and that's why we had the Bloodline Civil War. We've been talking about the possible Civil War and War Games now for months, and that's what we got. And it was very predictable. I mean, it was look at both War Games matches. You had the babyface team went over in both matches. And in both matches, basically the team captain beat the team captain on the opposing side, right? Rhea pinned Liv, Roman pinned Solo, which is not surprising because Solo pinned Roman at Crown Jewel. So this was Roman's, win back over him. They played it very safe. It was very predictable. Predictable doesn't mean bad. I think it was a very good match. But they played it very safe. And I do think maybe we were also a little spoiled by what happened a year ago because there was nothing they could give us that was going to match or top the moment we had at the end of last year's Survivor Series. I mean, that will go down as one of the all-time great Survivor Series moments of all time. So we weren't going to get anything on that level. Maybe The Rock would have walked out, but what was he going to do? So that part of it felt underwhelming. The match itself and the dynamic inside the shark cage with Punk and Roman, it was like, walking into an elevator with somebody that you just really don't like. That's kind of what the two of them look like. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I am really hoping that Bronson Reed is not too seriously injured. I know that he was going back home to get the injury diagnosed. He did confirm, I think, on his Instagram that it was a right ankle injury. At first, it sounded like maybe both ankles. Apparently, it's a right ankle injury. You never know with these things. It wasn't like he had to be carried out, although I guess he was helped to the back that night. I just hope it's nothing that's broken or too terribly broken that's going to keep him out of WrestleMania. I mean, if anybody deserves a good, solid spot on that WrestleMania card next year, it's him. And I'd like to see him have that because he's been the MVP on this show for the last several months. He was given the opportunity and he took full advantage of it. He became a must-see attraction on Raw. He got that tsunami splash over in a big way. And, for him to have to miss, the big Netflix debut and the Rumble and WrestleMania would be a real kick in the balls. So I'm really hoping that doesn't turn out to be anything too serious. Jacob Fatu, this is turning out to be a regular thing now where he's just so good at selling that everybody thinks he's hurt. Every single time he's grabbing his leg. Apparently that was a worked, injury in War Games. People were worried maybe he was hurt.
Well, yeah, the referee didn't throw up the X, so I wasn't really concerned about anything.
Yeah. Nobody was rushing over to him to check on him. And it was his first War Games, and I thought he showed out. I thought he had a great night. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the Roman thing and something that Michael Cole said at the end of the show that I think is very important. And he pointed out that Solo Sikoa still has the Ulafala, and Solo Sikoa is still the tribal chief. We're going to get a singles match between Roman and Solo. I certainly hope they're not holding off on that until WrestleMania. So we're going to get that match soon, hopefully soon. And I was thinking about, how does this go? How do they come out of this match to take us into the next chapter of this story? And the idea that I propose and that I really like, because Jacob Fatu should be leading this new bloodline. I felt that way from the day he first debuted. That he shouldn't be a follower, he should be a leader. We've seen Solo Sikoa now lose several big matches. This was his biggest. He took the loss in War Games for his team. It wasn't Tonga Loa or Tama Tonga. Solo Sikoa got pinned in that match. And if he goes in there with Roman Reigns and he loses, do you remember the SmackDown many, many months ago? I don't even think Jacob was in yet. But there was a backstage segment on SmackDown. Tama Tonga was saying something about how they're going to get Roman or whatever. And it was Solo Sikoa who said, no, if he can beat me for this Ulafala, I will hand it to him. And it was like, that's what we do. It was like
he said everybody has to acknowledge him, and we will acknowledge him as the tribal chief. We will acknowledge him. Yeah,
we will acknowledge him. And there might have even been a look on Thomas' face when he said that. And I never forgot that. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, if they're going to do a singles match, Roman Reigns beats Solo Sikoa. And Solo Sikoa, a man of his word, he hands the Ulafala over to Roman Reigns, puts his finger up, and he acknowledges Roman as the tribal chief. That could be the impetus right there for them to turn against Solo and lay a beatdown on him because they believed in him. And now he's essentially surrendering to Roman Reigns. All of a sudden, Jacob Fatu, I love you, Solo, right? He doesn't love Solo anymore. And he could lower the boom on him. And Jacob and the Tongans, they put a beatdown on Solo Sikoa, get him out of the new bloodline. And if you want it to be a foursome, you got Hikuleo waiting in the wings. You could have the 3 Tongans with Jacob leading the charge. I like that. And I think that is, as far as storyline continuity, that would make a lot of sense to me as far as why they would do that. Why would they kick him out of the group? Because they feel betrayed by him. But it ties back into something he said earlier this year. Again, that long-term storytelling that we were talking about. That's what I would like to see happen.
All right, so what do you do from that point on? Because I know you and I both discussed that Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu would probably be the one match that we look forward to at WrestleMania while Cody gets Rock. Do we go in that direction with Roman and Jacob Fatu if they do exactly what you just laid out here? Or do we get Rock coming in, proving that he is on the side of the new bloodline, the Bloodline 2.0? He is revealed as the man behind the scenes, the puppet master, and this leads to Rock and Roman at WrestleMania instead of Roman and Jacob Fatu. How do you work that out?
I mean, a lot of it depends on what Rock's role in WrestleMania is going to be. There's been a lot of rumors going around today about Rock and whether or not he's actually going to be in a match at WrestleMania. So it's sounding like he might not be in an actual match. Doesn't mean he won't be a part of the build. So it's as always, it comes down to The Rock and his availability and what he wants to do. Because this story could go any number of ways. He could be the one behind, Solo getting bounced out of the bloodline. And he could be the one to anoint Jacob Fatu as the new tribal chief. Roman and Jacob as a WrestleMania match, I could absolutely see that as a WrestleMania quality match. Some people, I've mentioned that before, some people are like, no, that's not really a WrestleMania match. But if you're not going to do Roman and Rock, let's say Rock's not doing the match this year. And Cody, let's say, is going to be involved with Randy and KO, there's going to be something going on there. You could absolutely do Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu. As far as Solo, I think Solo would have to go crawling back, groveling to get back with the OGs, but I think they would accept him because A, he's family, and B, if he gets kicked out for doing the honorable thing, I don't think it would be too hard for his brothers to forgive him and welcome him back.
Oh, yeah, especially if he acknowledges Roman as the tribal chief, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it's hard at all to envision Solo being back with them. Roman and Solo for WrestleMania, though, or Roman and Jacob, to me, I'm fine with that, if that's the direction they want to go. I don't know if they want a higher profile opponent for Roman, but if not Rock, then who would that even be? Right? I mean,
Nobody.
Rock would be the highest profile. You're not going to do Cena and Roman.
No, unless they do Rock and Cody in that triple threat match that we talked about several weeks ago.
But do you want to do Roman and Cody for 3 years in a row?
No.
I mean, no. Who's asking for that? And if Roman's not getting the belt back, what's the point?
It's either Rock or Jacob Fatu. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be one or the other. There's no other name to me that makes as much sense. So that's what I would do. Roman and Jacob Fatu.
Where does this match happen with Jacob? Not Jacob, but with Solo and Roman. Does it happen? It might be too early for Saturday night's main event. I've seen a lot of people saying, "Well, Rock's going to be at Saturday night's main event." I maybe I'm not holding my fucking breath for Rock to show up on Long Island. But do we do that on January 6th? Do we have just a pay-per-view PLE like Monday Night Raw on Netflix, and you just do it there?
Yeah.
And then The Rock shows up if they want to do that.
Sure. You're going to have people from Raw and SmackDown on that show. And it's all hands on deck. You don't have another big event until January 25th. So that's going to be, what is that, a week before or 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Before, it's a week before. The week before the Royal Rumble.
January 25th, yeah.
January 25th, NBC has ordered the next edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. Apparently, that's an NBC call. WWE has no say in it. NBC gives them the date, and that's the date they go with. Why you would do one a week before the Royal Rumble, I don't even know if NBC gives a shit. There may be a network reason why they want that date. So that's going to be the next one. You could do it on that show, but I feel like if you're that close to the Rumble, you may as well do it at the Rumble. So, yeah, either January 6th or the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I love all that. I really do. That Ulafala solo Tamatonga segment is definitely going to come back into play because we even said we even said it then. It's like, why would you say that? And then you're in the middle of this fucking takeover for the Bloodline, and then that's what you tell your guys. You're not even leader for 6 months yet.
Yeah. I mean, it just to do that segment and just not follow up on that and come back to it just doesn't make. It doesn't make sense in terms of this Bloodline story, which we know Heyman has a hand in, and everything is done for a reason. So that segment is going to come back in some way. And as far as the Bloodline turning on Solo, to me, it just makes all the sense in the world. They've stood by him. They put their fingers in the air. I love you, Solo. They pledged their allegiance to this guy, and you're just going to surrender it like that?
Yeah.
We've been in your corner this whole time, and you're just going to... It makes so much sense. I hope it plays out that way.
A couple of news and notes here, guys, on Survivor Series and the numbers that WWE pulled in. Just to give you guys a thought as to where WWE's mindset is, they may actually do Punk and Roman sooner than they want because the Punk and Reigns situation inside the Shark Cage, and then obviously some of the discourse that we've seen in the War Games match itself, and then them kind of coming together at the end when they won the match. 204. This was at yesterday when I took this news article, so it might be more now. 204 million views in the first 24 hours as an Instagram reel on that platform. That was unbelievable. So you can see the numbers that Punk and Roman are doing together, and WWE is probably happier than pigs and shit over that. And when that match happens and the story just kind of comes full force, imagine the numbers that are going to be done then. Everybody's anticipating it now. It's going to be incredible. So just to give you guys a glimpse into that. And then The Rock, again, please take the source into consideration. It's coming from Meltzer. He did say that Rock's right now status for WrestleMania is in question. He did say he had not committed to do the main event match on the show when I reported it, that he had not committed to do that and other bouts that we talked about, which to those involved at the time internally was a hell of a big deal. He still had not worked several weeks ago. The last time I was told directly, hence no advertising for him on the show. I haven't heard a change, but that subject hasn't been broached for more than a few weeks. From day one, I wrote it. It's up to him, and he can change his mind at any time. So Brock is not going to let anybody know outside of Triple H and Nick Khan, I'm sure, about what he's doing. But Sean Ross Sapp did put out a tweet today saying that Rock right now is the odds-on favorite, Vegas betting odds, to win the Royal Rumble. So, again, take that with a grain of salt. We don't know.
Well, there were people who said that this year, too, that he was going to win.
He may come in at number 31 this year, man.
He might. Hey, look. But here we are again, right? We're going into the beginning of the year, and we don't know what Rock is going to do, and it doesn't sound like WWE is fully, in tune with what he's going to do either. So it's like deja vu.
No, but he's going to do what he wants to do, and if it means blowing up plans, he's not one to really give a shit. So I fully expect something to be changed very, very rock style. And then Saturday night's main event, apparently with what Jason said, January 25th, why the quick turnaround from the one that's happening on December 14th and then 1 week before the Royal Rumble. Meltzer did say in regards to why the quick turnaround was January 25th, that's the date that's been there for a while, but WWE did confirm it to me. That's the date. It's Saturday before the Royal Rumble, so they're going to do a Saturday night's main event from 8 to 10 on NBC. And it's going to be 4 times a year, which was from the original release. And I guess the idea is one every quarter at some point during a 3-month period. So that's the date NBC wanted. And people are going to be like, well, why would you do it right before? You have to promote that and then the Royal Rumble at the same time. And it's like the deal is that when they get the date from NBC, that is the date they run. Jeez, I guess Jason should be running the fucking Observer. He just said that. Andrew Baydala on social media today says he's got good confirmation that it will be in San Antonio, Texas. So That is what's going on there, and that's the reason for the quick turnaround. I don't give a shit what the quick turnaround is. The WWE does things strategically. Why is it happening in December? Because there's no PLE in December. Why is it happening in January? There's no PLE in January. So I don't give a shit. The more content we get, the more stories we tell, the bigger the Royal Rumble is going to feel, and the more content we get on our platform. So everybody eats, man.
There's no PLE in January, but really that Netflix Raw is going to feel like PLE.
Yeah. So we'll see. It is what it is. Meltzer charging people how much for this unbelievable information, man? It's like, there you go. Monday night. Let's get into Monday Night Raw, which we both thought was one of the best Monday Night Raws of the entire year. Very story-driven, not much on the wrestling side of things, but it's okay when we get that every now and then. Story is king, and long-term booking is key, which is always important. Jason, the open of the show saw one of the best in-ring segments that WWE's done all year, especially this late in the year. You don't really get this type of thing in the slower parts of the year with the holidays all coming up. But, man, the CM Punk, Seth Rollins face-off, and then the Sami Zayn face-off. WWE has done such a great job of intertwining, webbing several different characters and several storylines together. And it's just super exciting, man. And people right now are still buzzing about what was happening in the first 30 minutes on Monday Night Raw. CM Punk came out and pointed to an imaginary sign. Obviously, the WrestleMania sign is going to be hung at the Royal Rumble. It's the first time we'll see it, but he's pointing to it now. He's making everybody...
God, I saw this. Don't tell me they're already pointing to the fucking sign. It's December.
Well, Punk is at least. Here? I don't know. Listen, man, out of all the
here?
people on the roster, man, he's the first one to point, man. He couldn't wait to come back and point. But he's pointing.
Well, he's been waiting 10 years, I guess, to point to that sign.
Well, he's got nothing on the other show to point at, so he's back pointing, and he wants a WrestleMania main event. That's why he's back. He's back to make money, back to do business, not back to make friends. He wants the main event and win the World Championship. So, obviously, after War Games, he's now got his mission statement. Seth Rollins, we all knew exactly what Rollins was going to do because we didn't see him 1 week ago on Raw. What is Rollins thinking about? What is he thinking about CM Punk team with Reigns? And he already denied the Bloodline. No, under no circumstances will I team with Roman Reigns. And then here's CM Punk is his arch rival, just making him look like an idiot, a geek, and he's teaming with Roman doing business. So obviously Rollins is going to take an issue with this. So everything that Punk wants, Rollins wants. But Rollins wants to try and stop Punk. Punk hasn't been thinking about Seth Rollins, but Rollins has been thinking about busting CM Punk's ass. And Punk said last night, I haven't been thinking about you, little man, or whatever he said, boy, kid.
Well, no. He said, you've been thinking about me for what do you say? You've been thinking about me for 6 months. I haven't thought about you at all.
Yeah.
Like your name hasn't even crossed my mind at all. You have nothing I want. That was that was the line that really made me go, okay, that got my attention. He's like, you were a champion earlier this year. Now you're not. You have nothing I want.
You have nothing that I want, and that's as shoot could be, folks. So he said that 6 months ago he had something, now he doesn't. Punk said Rollins might have been thinking about him for the past 6 months. He hasn't thought about him at all. He's got business to take care of. Stay out of my business. Rollins told Punk that he didn't listen enough either because this was his business. And then Rollins shoved Punk down, and then they started to fight. So this was a little awkward, for lack of a better term here, awkward for CM Punk. It reminded me, Jason, of watching The Miz's father square up with Shane McMahon when they were building towards their WrestleMania match, and Miz's father was on Monday Night Raw.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Shane McMahon. I was going to say it reminded me of the Shane Phantom punches that he used to throw.
I don't know what this was, man.
I don't know. He looked like he's like that kid in the lunchroom at school when he gets into a fight, just like kind of throwing his arms like this, and then Rollins just was ready to like double leg him to the mat. So let's not have like a fight pit match between these two. Maybe we'll just keep it to a regular wrestling match. No, so they brawled. Punk tackled him to the ground. They brawled very, very briefly, and then Sami Zayn and Jey Uso immediately ran out, and they broke it up. Adam Pearce was out there. Officials were out there holding everybody back. And then Seth Rollins gets on the microphone, and Sami Zayn is out there, and he's listening to what Rollins is saying. He said something about go back to Roman to Jey Uso. So Sammy took issue with this and said, whoa, what are you doing? You can't talk to him that way.
Rollins understood why Jay would go back to Reigns, given that they're family. He said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I was out of line. But then he points to Sami Zayn and says, well, what about you, Sami? You're not family. What's your issue? So crowd was chanting Sami Uso at that point, and Rollins says, yeah, I love Sami Uso. Everybody loves Sami Uso. But they came up together and have known each other for 20 years, traveled up and down the roads together. They got a better relationship together between them than Sami has with Jay or Sami has with Roman. And then Zayn says, listen, I wanted you to be our partner at War Games. Rollins says, he didn't like the fact that Sami Zayn teamed with Roman Reigns, but he's like, no, bullshit. I asked you twice to be my partner and our partner at War Games, and you told me no. So I'll stop right there. The fact that that was brought up, Jason, and the fact that I knew Rollins was going to be pissed off at Roman Reigns, or at CM Punk for teaming with Roman Reigns and still have an issue with Roman Reigns, and Sami heard this and said, well, listen, bro, I asked you twice, so you have absolutely no reason to be upset at me when you were the original one we wanted. Well, I never wanted fucking CM Punk. CM Punk was willing to help, and we accepted his help, and that was it. We wanted you. I love the way that they've intertwined this narrative that we've seen week over week over week over week. It's certainly something that we've been asking for on the other show on Wednesday nights, and we're getting it here, man. And I love this because it gives us things to follow, things to be excited about, things to look back on, and then when we get and do what we got to do, man, it's exciting to talk about.
I said that this was as good, if not better, than the promo segment that we had earlier in the year with Punk, Rollins, and McIntyre. Because to me, that was that maybe was my favorite segment all year, as far as like promo segments on TV. And this was in that same category. And one of the things that I loved about that segment is the same thing I loved about this segment, which is there was this palpable hatred. They did a very good job of making you feel like these guys in the ring, especially Rollins and Punk, really don't like each other. And maybe there's a little bit of realism in there in that, but it came across as in that segment and in this one too, you had guys out there who genuinely did not like each other. And then the dialogue, even with Sami and Seth, it didn't come across as forced. It didn't come across as, scripted or, all right, you're, I don't really see, like everything made sense because everybody was right. Everything Rollins was saying was right. Everything Sami was saying was right. It's the Kevin Owens thing. Look at what's going on with him and Cody Rhodes on SmackDown. Everything that they're saying, especially Kevin Owens, you listen to what he's saying, you know what? He's not wrong in what he's saying. It makes sense. They're all making sense. But they're all arguing with each other and they're all at each other's throats. And this is when these types of segments are at their best. So I thought everybody in this segment, they played their part to a hilt, just that realism that was there. When it was over, it didn't even feel to me like the first 30 minutes had gone by. It kind of breezed by and I was like, that was a pretty enthralling, fun segment there. And then it just went on from there, where Rollins said, look, I was not going to have a hand in making Roman's a monster, and I'm not going to have a hand in making this monster even more powerful than he already was by teaming with him in War Games.
Which I'm glad he stuck. He put his foot in the ground and said, I'm sticking with this, and I'm glad he didn't turn away from that because that would have made his character look like a complete fucking geek if he went back and said, you know what, I helped him, lose the championship, or I helped Cody rather win the championship, and we took the power away from Roman, only then team with him and help him get the power back. That would have made no sense narrative-wise.
Right. But then you had Sami come back at him and say, yeah, well, you helped create that monster when you put the chair in his back 10 years ago. And I thought, wow, they're going back now in the memory bank. And Rollins, to his credit, he comes out and says, you know what? I've atoned for that. You're absolutely right. I've atoned for that. I've admitted to my mistakes in the past, but you did the same thing at the Royal Rumble last year. You also put a chair in that man's back. So like everything that one guy said, the other guy would come back and have an answer for. And they went back and forth and it just felt like, okay, these guys are making a lot of sense here. And it just went on and on and on like that until finally, it was like, well, if you have some steam that you want to blow off, you want to do it in the ring tonight, we can do it in the ring. And Seth was like, well, I guess I'll see you in the ring later tonight. So when this segment was over, I thought it was excellent. It was just tremendous how they went from Punk and Rollins very seamlessly then into Rollins and Sami. And how they weaved Sami and Jey Uso into this, I thought was also great. And then the storyline that came later in the show where, Jey got attacked by a mystery assailant. We had our second whodunit angle. We have one on SmackDown with Jade, and now we had one with Jay on Raw.
Well, in the end of this Rollins and Sammy face-off here, they worked together to take the Bloodline down at WrestleMania, and he urged Sami Zayn to remember that. Rollins wondered if Reigns had even apologized to any of them yet for what he's done. So Rollins said his stubbornness wasn't the issue. Zayn's being naive was. Zayn could see Rollins was frustrated by this, and that's the way we ended the segment. And then they wanted to wrestle each other, blow off some frustration, and that's the way the main event happened. But as far as that is concerned, Jason, with what Seth Rollins told Sami Zayn here, he urged him to remember what they did at WrestleMania. Is that a seed planted for... I don't know how Sammy's going to come to the realization that Reigns is not a changed man. Is that where Kevin Owens is going to come into play, and we get Kevin Owens and the logic gap there, kind of filling that story up going into WrestleMania? Is he going to be the one to urge Sami Zayn, and Sammy's not going to believe him until they actually do something about it?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but I had a theory about this whole who attacked Jey Uso thing, because we did at the very end of the night have the Drew McIntyre return. Before you go on and say what you said, Drew McIntyre's too easy of a, he's the one who did it. I said that last night. Well, it's like, why would they just blatantly give you the who did it already, and it's McIntyre? I don't think that's the case. Well, that's what I mean, though. Like, there was never any, like, oh, it must have been Drew McIntyre. They didn't even mention that, and they want you to think, okay, it must have been Drew. My thought was, what if it's Kevin Owens? Because we know Kevin Owens obviously has no love lost for anybody associated with the Bloodline, but they have to explain why we have not heard from Kevin Owens in these last several weeks. That we went through this whole story where Sami Zayn, his best friend, the man he won the tag team titles with against the Bloodline at WrestleMania last year, has agreed to team with Roman Reigns in War Games. The same thing Cody Rhodes agreed to do with Bad Blood, and has not addressed it at all. We haven't had a backstage meeting with them. He hasn't brought it up in a promo or a social media video or anything like that. And I wonder if maybe he's the culprit, and maybe they'll play this out for a while. Maybe the idea when we get to WrestleMania is to build, based on this story, to Kevin Owens against Sami Zayn. Maybe that's the plan for those two at WrestleMania next year, is to have a match. I think that's the way. Now, some people in the chat saying it's Seth Rollins. I don't think it's Seth Rollins, but I think we alluded to last year, if anybody could use a heel turn here, and I do think that he'll probably end up playing the heel if the match does happen with Punk, is Seth Rollins. I do think that's a possibility. Yes, I agree. But, Rollins was adamant that I'm not going to team with you in War Games, and here are my reasons for doing it, because he's, in his mind, he's trying to be noble, and I'm not going to be party to putting more power back in Roman's hands. And last night, he was very clear. I didn't do it. Like, he came out and told Sami in the ring, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. So that would imply that he just lied to him, which, I don't know, that just wouldn't fit. To just blatantly lie to Sami like that, I just don't know that fits the character that they're having him portray right now. So he might go heel in this whole thing. And I think if you put Punk and Rollins in the ring together and let the fans choose, I feel like more fans are going to choose Punk than Rollins, even though nothing Rollins has said necessarily is wrong. Yeah, I don't feel it's Seth either. That's why I come back to Kevin Owens. That's just my instinct tells me that he may have something to do with this. Well, I mean, people were saying, well, it could have been The Rock. I mean, that's a real far-fetched. It could have been Stone Cold Steve Austin. What the fuck is Rock? What is The Rock doing backstage at fucking Monday Night Raw in Everett, Washington? It's like The Rock is going to show up to Raw, not on screen. He's just going to show up to hit Jey Uso in the back of the head and not even knock him out, and then get back in his car and leave. Like, come on now, give me a fucking break. Off is the direction you can fuck to Jey Uso. Yeah, sure. No. Take me to Everett, Washington. I want to hit Jey Uso in the back of the head. I mean, listen, man, anything's a possibility. I even talked about it last night, but I don't think it's The Rock, no. Do you think The Rock has ever even stepped foot in Everett, Washington in his life before? Possibly. I don't know. Maybe for a WWE show, and I don't know what building they were in last night, but I was just shocked they were even acknowledging Everett instead of saying Seattle, because if this were the Vince McMahon era, I don't know that they would have acknowledged Everett. They even had it on screen under the logo. It said Everett, Washington. I know. That's now that you bring that up, it's like Vince hated that. Yeah, no. what's the nearest big city, pal? Like, he wouldn't even acknowledge a city like Everett. Are you kidding me?
Oh man, yes, guys, it's not The Rock. We're going with who's based off television right now, which is McIntyre, KO, Rollins. Those are the big three right there. But as far as McIntyre and why he returned to TV, a lot of it had to do with he had some personal issues. I don't know exactly what, but he was off TV after Hell in a Cell. He is back now. PW Insiders report. What happened?
No, somebody said it was Rikishi. He did it for The Rock.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, again, anything's possible. Sure. PW Insider had reported last week that creative has been discussing McIntyre's return, but it was not expected to happen so soon. The belief backstage is that the injury to Bronson Reed at Survivor Series led to McIntyre's return being moved up a few weeks. Now, McIntyre has been advertised for WWE's holiday events, including the Madison Square Garden show, so he would have to be back in the ring soon anyway. However, his return last night on Raw means now he is immediately involved in WWE storylines. Now, he did attack Sami Zayn at the end of the show, Jason, and I brought up, before we discussed Kevin Owens possibly attacking and Drew McIntyre being a culprit potentially in this Jey Uso attack, why is he back? He went after Sami, and everybody's asking, well, why Sami, not Seth? So what we discussed last night was, well, he may be working with Seth. We don't know, number one. Number two, could he be back? Because you know how adamant he was about Roman Reigns and how Roman Reigns and the Bloodline fucked him over, just like Kevin Owens feels like the Bloodline fucked him over for 4 years. Drew McIntyre is probably number two there under Kevin Owens. Is he going after everybody that either teamed with Roman or teamed with Punk at War Games? Meaning he's going after Sami, he's going to go after Jay, go after Jimmy. Could we see an alignment of Rollins and McIntyre, possibly Kevin Owens, join forces here against the Bloodline? How do you feel about all that? He's going after everybody that teamed with Roman and CM Punk now.
I that's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, the idea that he would be going after people who associated with Punk, the only thing about that is, like, do we really want to continue to harp on the McIntyre and Punk thing?
No.
Because they blew that off at Hell in a Cell, and they had that great match, and it was months and months and months of those two, and I just feel like it's probably best to move away from that. But if they want to use that as the impetus to get him involved in something else, and it kind of just goes off in a different direction, then I'm fine with that. But I don't need to see any further association between Punk and McIntyre. If it were up to me, McIntyre wouldn't even be sharing a brand with him. He'd be on the other show.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised in a way they brought him back to Raw, but I guess if Reed is going to be out for any length of time, then I guess it's good for them that they could kind of slot him in there.
Yeah, I had brought that up. I thought that was an interesting way to maybe weave him into the story. But again, right now, we'll see. A lot of it is very unpredictable, which I am A-okay with. And more of this surprise... The surprise element of surprise going into WrestleMania season. Obviously, Saturday night's main event will give us more answers to something, but then we'll get a whole new slew of questions. And then we got Monday Night Raw. So I'm just glad, at the end of the day, I'm just glad McIntyre and Punk are back on TV, because I do feel like when they were off TV for the span that they were, man, the show was lacking some excitement and some balls. And now that they're back, you can see how the show has simply elevated itself to, what we got last night. So them being back together, man, is just, perfect.
And the timing is good because, again, Reed to me has been the standout on this show for the last few months.
If McIntyre was the MVP of the first half, you mentioned Bronson Reed MVP the second half, absolutely.
Yeah, and so if he's going to be gone, then it's good that Punk and McIntyre, and maybe Punk won't be there every week, but Punk and McIntyre being back on the show consistently, the timing couldn't be any better if Reed's going to be out for a few months.
Yeah, I love it. I'm just glad he's back, and it's going to be very interesting to see what he ends up doing, because he's right in the thick of things. The other big thing, before we get to the biggest of things that happened on Monday night, was the Women's Intercontinental Championship Tournament has finally gotten started. Now, the United States Championship is playing out. We'll get a new champion crowned December 14th at Saturday night's main event. That's already been announced. They have not made an official announcement as to where this champion will be crowned. I'm assuming, and Jason's assuming, that it will be on Monday Night Raw, January 6th, for the Netflix premiere. So we got the brackets, and we're going to do a little fantasy booking here, because I'm sure we both did some fantasy booking on our shows last night. On one side of the bracket, which we saw last night, Dakota Kai, Shayna Baszler, and Katana Chance, which I thought was a decent enough match. Pretty exciting for all three of those ladies. Dakota Kai got the victory over Shayna and Katana Chance. In the tournament on the same side, we got Zoe Stark, Raquel Rodriguez, and Kaden Carter. Now, with Dakota Kai in the semifinals, I said one of two things, Jason, here. Dakota Kai and Raquel Rodriguez have some sort of a history in NXT. I believe they were tag team champions at one point, or at least there was a pairing of sorts in NXT years ago. They could certainly play off that. But with the process of elimination here and thinking about what else is going on storyline-wise, I would figure that Rhea screws over Raquel, and we get Zoe, who WWE's always been high on. She gets in there. And the fact that Shayna and Zoe are in the same group, Baszler didn't advance, Zoe will, so it gives Pure Fusion Collective a little hope in the tournament. I figured they'd go that route. So Dakota and Zoe are my two ladies on the left side of the bracket. What do you think about what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right to me. The only question is, does Raquel kind of get preoccupied with Rhea or screwed out of her spot in the first match or in the semifinals? It's going to be one of the two. She's not going to the finals. So you may as well do it in the opening round. I think Damage Control, weren't they feuding with Pure Fusion Garbage Collective there for a few weeks?
Yeah, right? for a little bit, yeah.
Is that their name, right?
Pure Garbage Collection, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Are we allowed to say that? I don't know.
Maybe not. So, but PFC, they were calling them PFC,
yes.
Right? Okay, we'll call them PFC. So, yeah, I think they were feuding. So it would kind of make sense in that regard to have Zoe and Dakota in the next round. So, yeah, that sounds about right to me.
All right, so we got Dakota, Zoe on the left side, and then we go to the right side. One of the matches is actually pretty unpredictable. I don't know which way they're going to go, but Lyra, Zelina, and Ivy Nile. I think we both kind of picked Lyra to win this entire tournament, so we're going with Lyra on that one. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think Zelina's going to go and do much of anything in the tournament. Neither is Ivy Nile. And then Alba Fire, Kairi Sane, and Natalya. This is an unpredictable one because all three wrestlers are very good. Alba's great when she was in NXT UK, former NXT UK Women's Champion. Kairi Sane, everybody's looking for her to have a breakout moment, just like EO is having right now, and she hasn't really done much of anything since being back in the WWE, but team with Damage Control and just kind of be a background player. And then Natalya, fucking great pro wrestler. There's nothing more to say about Natalya. So I could obviously see any one of these women advance. As far as the tournament, Jason, I'm either going Kairi or Natalya, but as far as what we see on television, I think Kairi could use it. Natalya's been used more of I don't want to say an enhancement talent. That's too dirty of a word for her. I think she's very willing to help others out and put others over to help out the division. So I think Kairi is going to end up winning, and then Lyra is going to end up winning, and they'll meet in the semifinals.
Yeah. And then what you also set up there, potentially, and again, I think we're both on the same page with Lyra. I mean, it's Lyra or Dakota.
Yeah.
Because, and interestingly, and this is not by accident, but they are the only two women to get video packages on TV in the last few weeks.
Yes.
So there's a reason for that. But if Kairi moves on to the next round, and we assume Dakota is also moving on and going to the finals, you set up the possibility of having two members of Damage Control in the finals, which I don't think happens, but I think you have the tease of it, that, it could happen. But then Lyra wins, and then ultimately she moves on to the final round.
Lyra Valkyria going to be the new women's Intercontinental champion. So we will...
Yeah, that's... look, she hasn't really been featured on TV at all.
No.
The last few weeks. Dakota has. So by that logic, you would think Dakota would be the favorite going into the finals. But I just feel like Lyra, who was getting a bit of a push earlier this year, and then it just stopped. I feel like this could be their way of trying to start her back up again. And with these mid-card championships, you hear the expression sometimes the title doesn't make the man makes the title, or a woman. And in this case, I feel like with some of these women who just have not been featured in a prominent way, they could use now the titles are brand new, but the title can be used to help make the woman. And Lyra going around as the defending Intercontinental champion and therefore getting more television time could just be what she needs to try to start her back up again, because she's been ice cold. They haven't had anything for her. This could be exactly what she needs.
Yeah, I just hope that they get her to where they feel she should be. I I know you said she hasn't been on television. She hasn't. You're not going to be able to get the audience's emotion and attention if you're not on TV. I just hope that when she does win that championship, that they have an opponent lined up for her to really kind of get the audience going, because I know that she was actually in that little group that was going up against Pure Fusion Collection. And I said this last night. I have a feeling that, with who's omitted from this tournament, Sonya Deville's not in the tournament. You would think that of everybody, she wasn't going to win. If they want to crown Lyra, I feel like she's going to come out of this being her first challenger, and I don't really find that to be uber exciting for Lyra's first opponent. What do you think about, if she does win, who her first opponent's going to be?
I mean, so there's no obvious choice to me, so it really is just a matter of, if you want her to have a solid run, somebody who she could be matched up with who can lose. So I certainly wouldn't go back to Dakota right away. Dakota will win that championship at some point, but that's for down the road.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it would make sense for it to be maybe a Zoe Stark or a Sonya Deville. Zelina Vega, she can make a run for it. Maybe as a heel at some point. I could see that. Ivy Nile. Ivy Nile is with American Made. American Made largely just lose. So if they don't really have any serious plans for them, then it's hard to imagine they're going to have serious plans for Ivy Nile. But you could build up an Ivy Nile, let her pick up some wins and build her up as a heel challenger who could lose to Lyra Valkyria. So maybe Ivy, maybe someone like Zoe or Ivy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be. I hope that it is something that helps the division out. I'm just not there yet because of what we've gotten so far. I just have a lack of confidence in them doing anything right with the women. So we'll see. It's not very exciting to me.
And don't forget, Asuka is hurt, but she should be back soon.
And Becky will be back. She'll be on. I think they had in the news today that Becky was doing some sort of media for the Netflix junket for Monday Night Raw, so she'll be there too.
Yeah, there was some kind of party, I think at Netflix headquarters today, and they had Paul Levesque was there, Nick Khan, and some of the talent. I think she was among the talent that I would expect her to be. If she's going to come back, that first Raw in 2025 would make sense. Yeah. Because then she could be in the Rumble and part of WrestleMania season. But when Asuka comes back, Asuka has been a women's world champion before. I don't think she's going to be again anytime soon, but putting the Intercontinental title on somebody like her, that could be a way to elevate that championship.
Yeah.
Maybe Lyra gets a little bit of a run with it. Maybe at WrestleMania, who knows? It's Lyra defending against Asuka. I'm curious if either of these mid-card women's titles end up being defended at WrestleMania, or are they just going to relegate them to TV?
I mean, just look at what they do to the men. How many times has the IC title on the men's side been on PLE this year? Maybe
WrestleMania
half.
Though. It's WrestleMania though. You got 2 nights, and you really want to establish these titles as something meaningful. You would think you would want to have them, at least one of them, if not both of them, defended on that show. I would love to see Lyra win the tournament. Asuka comes back in the next couple of months, maybe even the Rumble, and maybe build to like Lyra and Asuka, and have a really solid middle of the card feud for that championship with somebody who has an established name and can help people really care about that belt and bring more attention.
I like it. Or, if everybody really wants to get invested, I feel like, who's missing on Raw? We talk about Becky, we talk about Asuka. What about Alexa Bliss? If she comes back and plays a heel like she used to, and she comes back and she is the villain to Lyra's babyface, I think that could be a WrestleMania match that works as well.
Alexa Bliss has held, how many championships has she held between Raw and SmackDown?
5, 6 maybe.
Yeah, so it's not like she's not accomplished and hasn't held titles before. There's been a lot of talk about her coming back around Rumble season, so yeah, I can see that.
It's going to be interesting, guys. The most important thing that happened on Monday Night Raw last night, obviously, is the New Day, and everybody is still talking about it today. Big E's girlfriend is absolutely flaming Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods on social media right now, to a point where they want to see her as a recurring character in the storyline on WWE television. So,
well, hey, her sister's already on TV. Her sister's moving on in the U.S. title tournament. So
why not
get her? You have Mia Yim on SmackDown and Mia Yim's sister on Raw.
Why not? I think it would be great. But the celebration last night, 10 years of the New Day, they had it all decked out. They had a big box of booty-os. They had the crown,
penny belts.
The penny belts,
the
yes.
Old the old penny belts were on display, and boy, I can appreciate these new tag team titles more when I look back at those old belts.
Yes, they are disgusting. Yes.
Oh my God.
Big box of bootios, the penny belts. They had rainbows. They had unicorns. They had pictures of some of the highlights that are in their career. And then you got Xavier and you got Kofi in the middle of the ring. And they were about to basically call it quits. And before they could actually say that they were going their separate ways, Big E comes out. And everybody is so happy to see him. And one guy that right now, justifiably so, that's gonna evoke so much emotion in people because of what has happened to him and where he's been and how long he's been out. And he's out there. He looks great. Looks fantastic. So he's out there, and they only had each other 10 years ago when they started this. He's talking about Kingston mulling over retirement because of where he was in his career, but the passion was beaten out of him at that point. E said that he and Woods were on the verge of getting fired before the New Day was a thing. And one of the worst days of E's life and the scariest moments of his career, obviously happened with the neck injury, and they were both at his bedside, making sure he was good. E held Kingston's baby, he discussed, while wearing a neck brace. Woods spilled tears on his shoulder when he won the King of the Ring tournament because he said to Woods that was a childhood dream of his. What they built meant a lot to people, and it meant a hell of a lot to E too. Until I am medically cleared to return to the ring, I am going to remind the two of you exactly who you are. I'm going to be here to cheer for you, to root for you, to uplift you. I'm going to be here every single week to serve as your manager. I'll stop there. The one line in all this, Jason, that really got me to say, you know what, I think I see where this is going. He said, until I'm medically cleared. So Big E is he's trying to make his way back to the ring. You know that this is what he wants to do. And I said I would not even be surprised if he's already medically cleared and they're just holding him out till the story plays out at the right moment and then we see him in the Royal Rumble. But the fact that he said that, it just kind of opened up my horizons a little bit more coming out of this thing instead of going into it. He's definitely coming back, and I have no question that he will be back on WWE TV in an in-ring role.
Well, that he had to say what he said because it played into a comment that Woods made later in the promo where he said, all right, stop teasing people. Let's just be honest here. You're never going to be medically cleared. That, to me, not even the comment that Big E made, that was the comment that made me go, oh, okay, either he's cleared or he's, in a situation where he's in the process of getting cleared. Because I don't think they would build a story creating this sympathy for Big E, like, oh, you're never going to get cleared, unless they thought there was a chance that he was going to get cleared soon. So, yeah, I think that, and I wouldn't have said that a week ago. I just wouldn't have guessed that he was going to be back in the ring at any point. But now it seems pretty clear to me that he will be. And I think, like, Royal Rumble, him being in there as a surprise, can you imagine them hitting his music, and he comes out there as a surprise and then ends up eliminating Kofi and Big E? Or Kofi and Woods. I mean,
you talk about Royal Rumble moments. I think the last time we felt that was when Edge made his return after 9 years. Imagine that.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a few years. He's been out of the ring, and they're creating all this sympathy around him, and then building to maybe a triple threat match, although it might be a handicap match at WrestleMania with all three members of the New Day. It feels like the direction to me. But yeah, I don't think they have those mentions and those lines in this promo unless he's coming back.
So Xavier, after Big E says, I'm going to be back every week to be your manager, everybody was like, yes, we're going to get Big E back on television. It's great to see the man back. And Xavier was like, now you want to come back? Yeah. So he did Big E after months of them fighting and arguing. The last thing, we thought that we would hear was you wanted to be back. Now, all of a sudden, you want to be back? Now you want to come back? You left us. He says, well, I broke my neck. That's why I was out. I broke my neck. It's pretty self-explanatory. Kingston then uttered the same thing that Xavier says. You left us. It was like they're speaking in unison here. Kingston said E broke his neck. So what? Stone Cold Steve Austin broke his neck. Kurt Angle broke his neck. Edge broke their necks. They all came back.
Did you see what Tommaso Ciampa tweeted?
Yes, yeah, I broke my neck too. What about me? He did.
He did.
So Woods said he and Kingston didn't change or evolve while E was out. It was to their detriment, but they did so that he had something to come back to. Kingston said E didn't even need surgery, and he still hasn't been back yet. He says he's been meeting with doctors, getting tests and MRIs and scans. Kingston said their philosophy was we before me, but each chose himself, broken neck or not. And then Woods, like Jason said, stop teasing people. You're never going to be cleared. Woods told him to get the hell out of the ring and go back to your desk job where you belong. He wouldn't leave the ring. He didn't want to throw all this away. He offered a hug. Kingston held him back. And Woods looked away from E. And then Big E continued to plead. Crowd was chanting, Big E rocks. E finally left the ring all dejected. Kingston and Woods looked at each other and said, it's just you and me now, bro. And they shook hands. And the darkness of the New Day, man, the power of negativity has been born on Monday Night Raw. This was...
I was going to say, from the New Day to the New Way.
Yeah.
What is going to be the path forward? Let me jump in here before you. And I'm going to say, first of all, one of the best segments on Raw all year. This was fantastic.
Maybe the best New Day segment ever in 10 years.
2 weeks in a row that the New Day their segment has stolen the show. And it has nothing to do with a match either, no. Right? Because that backstage interaction last week that set this up was great. But to go back to that, I did say last week in my review, I said, they're going to have to get around. I don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to have to get around this one line. And I know they were going back and forth saying harsh things to each other last week, but there was that one part of the promo where Kofi said, you know why I've been a world champion and Big E's been a world champion and you haven't been? Because you're not good enough. And I said, man, that's as low of a blow as you could think of. And so how are they going to explain this if they don't split, unless, because how could Xavier Woods let a line like that slide? So I was curious, what they were going to do here on this show. And of course, now they're still together. And by the end of this segment, they had shaken hands. Well, they found a way to do it. And the way I look at it, and I don't know if they're going to explain it this way, but it's kind of up maybe maybe everybody will interpret this a little bit differently. But the way I look at it is, they have decided to channel all of their rage and all of their anger and all of their discontent unfairly at Big E. Because what do a lot of people do in life? And we probably all know somebody like this. There's a lot of people out there who don't take responsibility for things in their life. Everything that these two guys said to each other last week was true. There was a ring of truth in all of it. And this is something we've seen a lot of in WWE lately, where people are saying things and they're popping off in these promos, and everything they're saying is the truth. We saw it in the opening segment last night. We've seen it with Kevin Owens, and we saw it last week with the New Day. Kofi Kingston telling him, you're reckless. You take too many unnecessary risks. You're not good enough. You haven't proven yourself to be good enough to be a world champion. That's the truth. Woods told Kofi, you pissed away the WWE Championship in 6 seconds to Brock Lesnar. It was 8 seconds, but it's true. He did. He pissed his title in 6 months, and he pissed it away to Brock Lesnar in 6 seconds. So they were both right, and they both said these horrible things to each other. So instead of accepting this and trying to come up with an appropriate response to these truth bombs that were dropped on them last week, they have both decided that they're going to direct their anger at this guy who has nothing to do with any of this. He didn't do anything wrong. But oh no, the easiest thing for them to do is to blame somebody else for their problems. They're blaming Big E for their own problems. Big E didn't cause this. That's how I looked at it. That to me is a pretty rational explanation for why they were so willing to put all the horrible things they said to each other last week on the side and just gang up on this guy. Because they don't want to take responsibility for the truth that everything that was said last week is 100% accurate.
Well,
I feel like that's a story people can relate to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're correct. The way that I looked at it was, I seen a lot of people on social media asking, well, last week they wanted to kill each other. They said all these nasty things that you just said last week to each other. They were going to break up before Big E came out there. Big E came out there, and then all of a sudden, by the end of the segment, they were back to being, Xavier and Kofi Kingston with basically everything that happened before it making no sense. Like, all this happened, and then you end up staying back together. I said, I don't know why people are looking at it that way, because Xavier and Kofi did say in the beginning of the segment before Big E even came out that they were on the phone with each other and they spoke all week about what was going to be said here. I don't think that they even knew storyline-wise that Big E was even in the building or Big E was going to be there. So when Big E came out and said everything that he said, and then he said he was going to be there every week to be their manager, they didn't really anticipate that. And then, as a human being, you hear that because that wasn't previously said to them in a private conversation with all three of them together. He said that live on Raw last night in front of them. Their anger it almost felt like in real time. Like that. If I heard that personally, I was thinking if I heard that from somebody and I was in that situation, I probably would have said the same thing that Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston said. Like, now you want to come back? Where the fuck have you been for like the last 2 years, man? It's like you didn't even have surgery on your neck, man. You've been home. Your girlfriend, your outside projects, your other jobs. It's like
he's been doing the pre-show panels.
Yeah, but
it's not like he's not been around. Every fucking PLE.
I know, but he wasn't. They didn't expect him to be in the building.
But I'm saying just to feed into what they were saying last night. It's not like he hasn't been around or he's not able to travel, right? Yeah. You're good enough to do pre-show panels, but you can't like support your friends.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
It just happened in real time. And, a lot of people were like, well, why did that happen last week? And then they were okay this week. It's like Big E, what Big E said and why he showed up last night is the reason for their anger. Happened like that in real time.
But that's what I mean. Like that. So that's how I look at it. It's like, yes, they were coming out. They didn't know he was going to be there. There was a Big E chant at the beginning and Woods was like, yes, we miss him too.
We love him too. Yeah.
So they didn't know he was there. Then he shows up. They were all ready to put an end to this New Day thing. And then he says, oh, I'm going to be your manager now. And Woods is the first one to go, wait a minute. Now you're going to come? And then Kofi's like, you know what? He's right. So all of a sudden, like you said, in real time, they're like turning their ire on this guy, which is completely unwarranted, to just try to avoid taking responsibility for their own shortcomings that were laid bare right there on TV last week. And all of a sudden, just like that, now they're on the same page. It's like, you know what? We have a common bond now that unites us, and it's just you and me now. We're on our own, and it's this new heel version of New Day that I am very intrigued to see play out on television, because this is a version of the New Day. I mean, I guess the New Day were heels at the beginning of their run. I think a lot of people I barely even remember those kind of early.
Yeah, but it was more gospel style vignettes, and they were more of annoying than anything. But I feel like this is a lot darker.
This is sinister, yes. Yeah. Now that was more of like what you would expect under Vince.
Yeah.
You think Vince McMahon would ever book this kind of version of the New Day? Like, no. It would be all about no. We got to keep it positive and merch and blah blah blah. Well, here we are now. The New Day has been more interesting in this angle than they have been in probably 5 years at least. So I want to see what a heel New Day is going to look like, because we've talked about the tag team division. And the lack of more than depth, the lack of focus on this show. I'm assuming that Balor and McDonough are going to lose those tag team titles to the War Raiders. Is it a case where the New Day, as heels now, are going to win the tag team title? Do they need to win the tag team titles? Do they individually go around, beating up certain people? What is this going to look like now? Because I feel like if it's just them competing in the tag team division and that's it, that's kind of lackluster to me. Like, I don't feel like nobody really cares about that. But if they're going to go around, not just collectively, but maybe even individually, they have some singles matches, and then maybe Kofi gets involved and they're beating people up. Old friends of theirs, Jey Uso and stuff like that. That to me would be more interesting.
I like the idea that you brought to the table earlier about a triple threat match at WrestleMania. I think I alluded to something like that playing out on my show last night, and the WrestleMania moment would be them obviously coming together. There is going to be a New Day reunion. It's just not going to happen, imminently. They're going to come back together, and they're going to be the New Day, and they're going to do their shit like they usually do. And we're going to hear Big E's entrance and Feel the Power.
Huge. Yeah, it's going to be huge.
But as far as what they did last night, to add on top of what we're discussing here, the unpredictability of it, I mentioned last week. Coming into this, we were like, is Xavier going to turn on Kofi? Is Kofi going to turn on Xavier? We all figured Big E was going to be there, but the level of unpredictability even went into the segment last night, and I was even taken off guard because I didn't think they would actually venture into where they did. Turning on Big E is a ballsy move, and I really respect that and I really appreciate that. And I'm genuinely curious how those creative discussions were coming about and how they planned all this. How do we maximize the biggest New Day heel turn if that's the direction? Well, we got to turn on E. And I thought they just did it beautifully. I mean, that really, I don't think anybody thought of it. Maybe a couple of people did, but I certainly wasn't thinking of it because I didn't think they'd have the balls to do it. But they did, and I loved it. Everything, the way that they played it out was perfect.
And I'm kind of happy they didn't attack him. They probably weren't able to physically attack him. He probably isn't cleared to do anything physical, but I'm kind of glad they didn't, because I feel like that would have taken it over the top. And I feel like that would have just made it like any other sort of wrestling angle that we've seen. Just because they have issues with this guy and they don't want to have anything to do with him anymore and they resent him doesn't mean that they're going to turn around and, beat the piss out of this guy who, broke his neck and can't defend himself. So I'm glad they didn't go down that road. And again, maybe they couldn't, but I just feel like, how do you not, after what we saw last night, imagine that Big E is going to be back in the ring in these next few months, and I think the Royal Rumble would absolutely make the most sense for a spectacular surprise entrance, and then he can eliminate both guys maybe at the same time, get a huge pop out of it, and then you kind of take the feud from there. Now Big E is back, and then you build to whatever the match is going to be, whether it's a handicap match, whether it's a triple threat match, and Kofi and E or Kofi and Woods now start to falter again a little bit, and we end up with a triple threat. It's like we never got that Shield triple threat at a WrestleMania, but we could very well end up with a New Day triple threat at WrestleMania.
I love it. I love the fact that he didn't get physically attacked either, because the way that Big E is so special to the audience, an emotional fucking heel turn on Big E, I think is more powerful than a physical attack on Big E.
Yeah, well, look what they did. Like at the very end of the segment, he was off mic, but you could hear him like, so that's it? That's how it ends? We're a family. Like, this guy looked like he was about to start crying and he was like heartbroken. And it was just so smart for them to use him as a sympathetic figure as a way to get Kofi and E, or I keep mixing their names up, Kofi and Woods. I'll get it right one of these days. Kofi and Woods to get even more hated by using E as a means to get there. I thought it was smart. And like you said, it took guts for them to do it, but I think that it's going to pay off nicely for them, because to do a swerve for the sake of doing a swerve is stupid. To do a swerve that makes sense in the context of the story, those are the best kinds. The ones that you don't see coming, or you really don't think they're going to go there, but they do, and it gets the desired reaction. That's what we got last night, and I just thought it was so great. And I said on Twitter, as soon as the segment was over, I said, we got more storytelling. Quality, like the best storytelling all year on a wrestling show in the first 75 minutes of Raw than we have on any other show wrestling-wise all year. Any other Raw, any other SmackDown, any other promotion, between the opening segment and the New Day segment, those two things alone, and we weren't even 90 minutes into the show. That's what made that show last night so great.
I enjoyed Raw better than Survivor Series, just because of the story that was told in those two segments. And, they're relatively quiet, Jason. Where are the 3-hour Raw merchants, man? Where are you guys? We told you 2-hour Raw is going to be booked great if they actually give us a great show, and nobody's going to complain. I didn't hear any complaints yesterday. You guys asking for 3-hour shows now?
Well, there were some people who would have liked to have had more in-ring action, and because that opening segment went so long.
Sure.
On a 3-hour show, maybe it wouldn't have made that big of a difference. On a 2-hour show, when the first 30 minutes is occupied by talking, you're obviously going to get less in-ring. But if the promo segments, like we got last night, are that strong, then that's okay. All I ask for is give me a show that is genuinely entertaining. Give me a show where the stories make sense, the characters are compelling, you make me laugh or you make me angry, not for the wrong reasons. You get some people very emotional because, again, like the Big E stuff. Like, as long as you're giving us quality television, I don't care if it's in the ring, I don't care if it's on the microphone. Ideally, it would be a combination of both. Last night, it was more microphone than in ring, but it hit. And that's all I ask. And it doesn't have to be 3 hours. This just proves the shows can't be good if they're 2 hours. Bullshit. That was just such a cop-out excuse. And it's too bad, because these are the final 2-hour Raws, maybe ever. And I'm going to enjoy this last month while we have it, because I
Yes.
think both shows are going 3 hours as of the beginning of January.
And keep in mind, guys, Saturday night's main event is coming up in 2 weeks. They already have a card fleshed out. There's not much to do. They're building that show off of what's been existing on WWE TV right now. So there really isn't. They found a nice 2-week period where wrestling does not need to be at the forefront, and story dialogue can be. So, they're just acting accordingly to what's on the schedule. So it'll go back and normalize itself. Don't worry.
Yes. I mean, it's not like it's going to be like this every week.
No.
Can't be like that every week. But I'm just happy, again, December is usually a dead month as far as anything major going on. And it just feels like so many shows in the past have been phoned in this time of year. And maybe they will be later in the month when we're around Christmas week and stuff. I'm sure it will be because of the holidays, but also they're going to be gearing up for January 6th. So maybe at the end of the month, it'll feel that way. But I'm just glad that they're not, taking a back seat and just kind of kicking their feet up and relaxing and giving up until January. They're giving us, compelling television. If last night is any indication, I think it's great.
Love it. Speaking of Big E, we got some contract news on Big E from Fightful. In 2019, New Day and WWE announced that the New Day signed 5-year contracts with Xavier, Kofi, and Big E signing until the end of 2024. Now, Fightful says they have not learned about the status of Woods or Kofi and any possible injury time or re-signings or extensions, but they did learn a little bit more about Big E as speculation runs wild ahead of the 10-year anniversary yesterday. So those that Fightful spoke to within WWE says that they don't believe that injury time will be added to Big E's deal as of this summer. He's been sidelined since early 2022, obviously due to the broken neck. However, we've not learned if he'd re-signed or got a new deal since then. It would make sense for WWE to not add injury time to his deal, as the contract they signed with him was under the expectation that he'd be an in-ring talent. He's been appearing on digital content, making appearances and panels, which counts towards his deal. And there's always a chance that things have changed since then. But as of the summer, that was the word, says Fightful. I don't really think they're going anywhere, Jason. I didn't really make much of this. I do think that with what we're seeing right now, pretty much guarantees that they will be on WWE TV for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even know for sure that Big E will be back in the ring. We assume after last night he will be, but they'll be keeping him busy. They've been giving him stuff to do. I feel like he could probably do well if he ever wanted to do commentary.
Yeah.
I haven't really heard him do much in the way of any kind of commentary, but I feel like that's another area where he could excel if he couldn't wrestle and he wanted to do it. He does the pre-show panel stuff. I've seen him do some stuff for them on social media. So yeah, I mean, there's no reason for him or any of them to go anywhere. Kofi at this point, probably closer to, well, not even probably. I mean, he's closer to the end of his run there than the beginning of it. He's been there so long. They even said in the promo, that last week, I guess it was, that he was, considering retirement until the New Day came along. And they said, actually, it was last night when Woods said he had the passion beaten out of him, and I laughed because how many people do you think were like that on the roster?
Yeah, I wonder why.
I can't imagine why. The passion beaten out of them. Why? Come on, man. It was such a fun time.
Yeah, let's go ask Eric Young about how that feels.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's no reason for them to go anywhere. I would be shocked if, and I'm not even sure how the up, down, down channel would factor into that. Let's say if Woods were to leave, because that's a WWE owned channel, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, but he pretty much runs it. Yeah, he pretty much runs it for them, I think. So, yeah, there's no reason to think they're going anywhere.
So that is the end of the WWE stuff, guys. We got a couple of AEW news and notes, and then we'll get into your super chats. Some injury updates here. Sky Blue is on her way back to AEW television, which is a great thing. She was doing very well there before she actually got hurt. That was during a collision taping in July against Hikaru Shida, when the match was stopped early and she could no longer continue due to a high cross from Shida on the outside. She landed awkwardly on Blue's legs. Referee checked on Sky Blue before calling in the doctor. And once Collision returned from the commercial break, it was announced that Shida won the match via referee stoppage. It was later confirmed that she had suffered a broken ankle and had surgery. So she is on her way back. She's not there yet, but she did say, I don't know why she said this, I just want to come back fully healthy so I can go crazy and do all my hardcore matches and be 100%. No hardcore matches. Just let's ease ourselves back into it, please, before we get injured again. But I do think that she was actually turning a corner nicely. and she was one of the more bright spots in the women's division. Hopefully she could get back to where she was, but it'll be nice to see her back on television. And who knows if she's going to be paired up with Julia Hart again. I know that was an act that people were somewhat excited about, and they went nowhere with, just like everything else. But she's on her way back to AEW television. And I have Rey Fenix news here. I think this happened after we ended last week's show, and I know we didn't talk about this together, but that was the big story coming out of AEW last week. AEW has no plans to use Rey Fenix and no plans to let him out of his contract, so he will be iced. Penta is a free agent as of this week. He, more than likely, the rumor is that he will be signing with WWE. Nobody knows if he's going to be used or if they're just going to wait till Phoenix is free, but I doubt that's the case. That would be foolish. But Rey Fenix is being iced, Jason, and reports are coming from the Wrestling Observer newsletter indicate not only that Penta's contract expired, but Rey Fenix and the discussion of Rey Fenix being iced has sparked debate. Obviously, people are criticizing AEW's handling of Phoenix situation. It's important to remember that Tony Khan has previously raised concerns about alleged contract tampering by WWE. Furthermore, the practice of retaining talent even without utilizing them on screen is a strategy WWE's employed for many years, Meltzer says. And a lot of people got on AEW's case for this because of how talented he is, and he's heralded as one of the best luchadors in the entire world. And for him to not be used for a long period into 2025 would be just as a business move to me, it just sounds outlandish. But I talked about this on my end, and we can sit here and talk about how Tony Khan is doing the wrong thing here. There are a couple of things that led to this. Now, clearly, Tony Khan can do whatever he wants. I do think that it's petty. I don't know why he wouldn't use someone like Rey Fenix on his television show when, I'm sure any promoter can find a great spot for him, no matter if his contract is expiring or not. But I think all of this could have been not an issue if Rey Fenix and Penta didn't go on social media and kind of, I don't know if they let the cat out of the bag early, but there was speculation about it. Obviously, AEW and Tony Khan picked up on it, and then they acted accordingly because, they don't want WWE to get Phoenix and Penta. So Tony Khan went back and said, you know what, I got injury time, I'm going to add it, and he's being petty, and that's what people now are attributing to Tony Khan's behavior here, him being petty. What do you make of this situation? Because I feel like I think it's a terrible business move, and I've always talked about the mental health aspect of it. I have people that I know that are in the Phoenix camp that have stated that this is a mental health issue, and not many people are raising awareness to it. I know Phoenix posted a Instagram reel. He did not seem too excited, and he basically said that it's business, and he's going to handle things professionally, and professionally from this point on. What do you make of this situation? How do you feel about this? Is Tony Khan wrong? Is Tony Khan right? What do you make of it?
Well, the whole thing is just unfortunate, but there was a lot of chatter that I guess got back to Tony that Penta or people from their camp were maybe speaking openly about what their plans were post AEW, about going to WWE, and then it may have gotten back to Tony. If they were talking to people about going to WWE, whether there was something official, unofficial, already kind of waiting for them, if that was their plan, we're going to get out of here, we're going to go to WWE, I can understand Tony being upset about that if this was being openly discussed in the locker room. And again, we're not in the locker room. I don't know if it was or not, but that was certainly some of the stories going around. To me, it's like, just to go back to the Ricky Starks thing, same thing, where you have someone under contract for a long period of time and you're going to pay them to sit at home and not use them. In the case of Ricky Starks, apparently he exercised the option year on his contract, which would have been up this year. But because of that, the belief is that Ricky is going to be under contract now through the spring or summer of next year, and that he has no plans on using him. Rey Fenix, he decided he's going to add on injury time that he chose to add on. He didn't have to do that, but you know what? He's within his rights to do that, but he's not going to use him. That's the part that just doesn't make any sense to me. And I get it where if in his mind he thinks, well, if they're going to leave me, why should I give them real estate on my television show? You can give them real estate on your television show and find ways that you can utilize them to help get other talent over. And I don't just mean putting them on TV and squashing them like jabrones, but you could find ways to get your money's worth out of these people and put them on TV and help elevate other people on the roster, because Rey Fenix is an established name from the early days of AEW. He's an AEW original in that way, right? He was there from day one with his brother.
Yeah.
Ricky Starks, he was there from the early days of AEW and had become established and was one half of the tag team champions. He feuded with CM Punk last year. Didn't he win the Owen?
Yeah.
Right? He won the Owen. He feuded with CM Punk. And when Punk left, he had that match, the strap match with Bryan Danielson. Like, he was a name performer on their show. And to intentionally extend their deals, roll them over, whatever. It's not like, well, I have them for another 6 months and I'm just not going to use them. He actively decided, I'm going to add time to your deal and I'm not going to use you, but I'm going to pay you to sit at home and do nothing. That to me just doesn't make any business sense. So unless there's other things going on here that are not being discussed publicly that we're not aware of, and I don't know what that would even be, it's stupid. It comes across as petty. I feel bad for these guys because they're in the prime of their career right now. Ricky, what is Ricky, 34? I don't know how old Phoenix is, 36, 37 maybe?
Yep.
Or maybe not. Maybe he's like mid-30s. They want to be out there. They want to be out there. They want to work. And they're on ice right now. And so they're out of sight, out of mind. And I'm sure that in their mind, like Ricky said, it's a mind fuck. I'm sure for Phoenix, it's a mind fuck. His brother is free. I'm sure they want to be together.
Yeah.
I don't know what Penta's going to do. If I'm WWE, I'm certainly not waiting. I'd snatch him up right away. Whether I would use him right away or just sign him and hold on to him until his brother is free, I don't know. But it's just very unfortunate, and I don't see the business sense in going out of your way to extend someone's deal even longer if you have no intention of actually using them, because to me it's just pettiness for the sake of pettiness. I floated the idea on my show this weekend, like, at least try to get some of that money back. Like, if let's say they wanted to leave, right? We're assuming they plan on leaving, or at least testing the free agent market. I'm not aware of Ricky Starks or Rey Fenix actually going to Tony Khan and saying, I want to be released, right? I haven't heard any reports of them asking for their release. But let's assume that they want to leave, right? They want to look elsewhere. Offer them the option of buying themselves out of their contract. I mean, I brought up the example of Davey Boy Smith on my show, who famously, he paid like $100,000 to Vince McMahon to buy himself out of his contract after the Montreal screw job. And that allowed him to go to WCW, which turned out to be a fucking humongous mistake. But he bought himself out of his contract. He's like, all right, I want out so badly, I'll pay you this much money to get out. But Tony, I guess to him, like, this is just nickels and dimes, I guess. Maybe to him in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But to pay all this money and just not get any kind of return on your investment doesn't seem like a wise use of your money to me.
No, that's the most fucking bizarre aspect of this entire thing. I just don't know how you're paying this amount of money. I'm sure Rey Fenix is not coming cheap to pay him this money to sit at home. Meanwhile, you have a Continental Classic going on right now. Phoenix is healthy and ready to go, yet you're using Commander in the Continental Classic. You could have put Phoenix in there and had him give back to you in that way to at least recoup some of your investment in him. Great matches with Ricochet and Will Ospreay. I mean, he would have made the Continental Classic a little bit more prestigious in that aspect just by name value alone. And yet you're using Commander, who nobody thinks highly of anyway, outside of the ability that he has. Great wrestler, don't get me wrong, but he's a fucking loser. I mean, every time he just uses an enhancement guy because Tony loves what he does. But why not Rey Fenix in that spot?
Commander, look. Commander, to be fair here, in that four-way on the pre-show last weekend, actually was probably the star of the show. I mean, so his ability speaks for itself. Yes, he's not booked as any sort of major draw or major name where he's going out there winning matches every week. I don't want to diminish, what he brings to the table with that style. He's great. But yeah, Rey Fenix, you could slot him in there, and he could do the same thing Commander is going to do, which is probably just feed wins to other people in the tournament. And you'll have, instead of Commander, you'll have Rey Fenix in there with Will Ospreay, and Rey Fenix in there with Darby Allin. and people like that. The other side of it is Tony Khan could use them and he could job them out and drive their value down. If he wanted to be super petty, he could do that too. And he's opting not to do that. But just, again, from the perspective of just a promoter who's paying these performers to sit at home, again, I go back to extending them intentionally if you don't have the intention of using them. There's no other conclusion that could be drawn from that other than pettiness or spite in some way. What other conclusion can you come to?
Well, he wanted to be the alternative, and he didn't want to be what Vince McMahon and WWE were, but here we are, and he's adopting the same behaviors that Vince did, and that's not really the model guy that you want to fucking base your wrestling promotion off of.
And you'll get people, and I've already seen some of this criticism online. Well, people wanted him to be a boss.
Yeah.
He wasn't a boss, and now he's a boss, and people are complaining about that. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about common sense. Like, from a business perspective, the question I'm asking you is, why would you keep somebody under contract and continue to pay them if you are not going to utilize them in any way to try to make money for your company? That's the question. And I have not gotten a good answer on that.
No, you won't. Yeah, and you won't get a good answer on it.
Right.
These sickos don't have a good answer to that. No.
But again, I don't know why. It just seems like such an obvious question to ask. And so to immediately get that, oh, well, people wanted him to be a boss. Okay, but is that being smart? It doesn't sound like a very smart strategy to me.
Sounds like a billionaire just throwing money around for absolutely no reason because he's got too much of it.
You could be spending that money elsewhere on something else or someone else. If you really are truly not going to use these people, time will tell, right? Who knows? Maybe we'll see Rey Fenix in 3 weeks on TV. He'll pop up out of nowhere. He could always change his mind. All it takes is one phone call. Hey, come to work. We need you.
Yeah.
But if we take things at face value, and it certainly doesn't look like he's got plans for them, it's just incredibly stupid. And I just don't understand it. It's petty. It's dumb. But they're bound by these contracts, and it doesn't look like anything is going to change anytime soon. So they're going to be on ice for a while. Not a doubt in my mind. When their deals are up, they're out of there. After this, why the fuck would they want to stay? And then they'll be able to move on at that point. They're still young enough where, they'll be fine. But yeah, psychologically, it's got to be a mind fuck for both of them. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. How could it not be?
The discussion of it sets a bad precedent too is something that has been discussed in the community. If Tony lets them out of their deals, it sets a bad precedent because then everybody else is going to start asking to be out of their deals if they want. And Tony doesn't want to put himself in a position where he's easily walked over. Then you talk about not only that aspect, but on the flip side, if you're an outsider looking on in at this situation, what makes you want to go to AEW if you know Tony Khan's going to eventually behave like this while you're there and could eventually do this to you? So it's like a double-edged sword here. Is this something that Tony is doing? He's playing a dangerous game. Is he playing a dangerous game with the way he's behaving here from the roster that he has now and then obviously to the people that may want to join AEW in the future? Who knows?
Well, I mean, look, I could see where it could make some people think twice when they read these reports and they see what's going on. To go back to the Rey Fenix thing for a second, I'm just trying to put myself in the position of a Tony Khan. Rey Fenix did miss quite a bit of time. He was hurt, right? Multiple times.
Yeah.
He missed quite a bit of time. If you're Tony Khan and you have this performer who has missed time due to injury, an extended period of time, and now you're hearing these rumors or people are reporting back to you or you're seeing online reports that these two brothers are being very vocal about their desire, let's say, to go elsewhere, and their contracts are coming up soon, and you have the ability to add all of this time on because you feel like you didn't get your money's worth. I can see from his perspective where, in the case of Rey Fenix, he would be very upset about that. I needed you. I wanted you. I'm paying you. You're hurt. You're missing all of this time. And now I'm hearing these rumors going around that you're openly talking or Penta, whoever is openly talking about going to WWE. I could see where he would be upset about that. But at least then use him. Do something with him if that's the case. And what you just said about, does this set a bad precedent if he just lets them out? We're not talking about that. What I'm talking about is extending them. Like, he didn't have to add the injury time to Phoenix. He could have just let his deal naturally lapse. Ricky Starks, he didn't have to roll him over, even though he had the option, right? If his deal was going to be up and he wasn't going to use him, or Ricky, maybe Ricky would have re-signed with them if he just wanted to test the free agent waters. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Tony would have made him an amazing offer and he would have re-signed.
Well, here's a question. Has Tony made this too personal? Because if Rey Fenix and Penta said that they were going to Impact or TNA and they were not going to WWE and they wanted to go there if their AEW contract expired, and they were saying that while under AEW contract, would Tony have taken the same steps that he's taken with Rey Fenix and Penta now with TNA? Probably not, right?
No.
So it's a WWE thing.
Well, because he believes that in the past, and maybe he still thinks it's happening, but in the past, he certainly has spoken publicly about this. This isn't just some internet rumor, that he feels like there's been contract tampering going on and that WWE plays dirty and walks all over him and tries to fuck him and his company over. So yeah, to him, it's personal. So yeah, it's a WWE thing. It's not, if it was TNA or somebody else, I don't think he would be reacting this way.
Well, there you got it, guys. We'll be seeing Penta, but Rey Fenix, well into 2025, he will be iced with AEW Prison.
Penta, man, we're gonna see Rey Fenix, man. He's gonna put on like fucking 50 pounds of muscle. He's gonna be all
he's gonna come back like Mike Santana. He's gonna look fucking jacked.
He's got nothing but time, and he's gonna come back, man. He's gonna look like a totally different person.
He's gonna look like 3 times the size of Rey Mysterio. So
he's gonna look like the Beast Mortos the next time we see him.
Yeah, Frank the Attorney?
Frank. Good. Has that been explained yet? Or is that just
no,
like an inside joke?
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting on it. I have no answers to it.
It's got to be an inside joke.
Anyway, guys.
I think it's probably something Roddy literally just came up with on his own. Like, I'm just going to call this guy Frank.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, just to, like, get people talking.
Well, we appreciate you guys very much, man. Thank you for talking with us. 2,800 people in here. We are literally 100 likes away from our goal of 1,000. So if you guys are in the chat, I would love if you hit the thumbs up, man. We need another 100 of you to hit that thumbs up. Super chats are open and will remain open. Get them on in. It's a great way to support the show. And please make sure you guys follow us on social media and on YouTube. Everything you need is linked down below in the description of this very video for episode 75 of TNT. On our way to 100 episodes. Should be really fun. I know, it's crazy.
Hard to believe, man. Time flies.
I know. Who do we got here at the top? We got Michael Krause with a $2 super chat. Good Tuesday, OTS family. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you always. Francis Loop with a 25. He says, I love your rant, JD, on the women's War Games match. Even watch your short on it. They should rename it, instead of War Games, it should be called Spot Fest Amania, because that's what it has become. He also says, how can you call it war when everybody seems fine, like they've just competed in a 10-man tag? Where's the brutality? Where's the war? What about psychology? And I agree, Nia Jax should have gone in last for the heels, since when do the baby faces get the advantage? Ridiculous. Heels should have the advantage. You want story, watch War Games 92 and 1997.
Well, the heels got the advantage in the men's match.
Yeah.
And you can't just have the heels win every advantage match every year. I mean, at some point, the baby faces have to win their advantage match. So I didn't have an issue with that this year.
Appreciate you always, Francis. Thank you so very much. I agree. Where's the brutality? If you're going to do a War Games match, I want to see some physicality. We didn't really get much of that in the opening match for sure. Ali, 28 months. JD, it's been an honor being a part of the OTS family for 28 months. You consistently deliver amazing work that no one else in the IWC can match your work. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. 28 months is a long time. Thank you for being part of the VIP club. Sidro. The $5 super chat, as the music is dying down here. What's a robot do after a one-night stand? Nuts and bolts. What did a hurricane say to the coconut tree? Hold on to your nuts. This ain't no ordinary blowjob.
I like the first one better. Nuts and bolts was pretty good. Nuts and bolts is pretty good.
I like that. I like that second one a little bit more, man. I don't know.
Nah, I think the first one wins it.
That's not the last of Sidro. He'll show up a little bit later. Eric Aviles with 25 months, no message. Thank you, Eric. Golden microphone looks very nice next to your name, brother. Michelle with the $2 super chat thinks Seth and Drew join forces to go after Punk. It's a possibility. I just don't really care to see Drew and Punk anymore after Hell in a Cell. I think that should have been the blow-off.
Drew and Punk, continuing, not a huge fan of that, but Drew and Seth against Punk and Roman. What do you think about that?
I like it. I like it. WrestleMania is going to be very, very interesting. Joseph Morris with a 5. In my opinion, Liv Morgan deserves a WrestleMania moment and win more than Rhea does this upcoming Mania for the work she's done this year. Sure. But the whole story is Rhea winning the title back, so I don't know why everybody's surprised.
Yeah, she's done great work, but I have no desire to see this carried into WrestleMania.
No.
So Liv could win against somebody else, but it's not going to be against Rhea Ripley.
Tony Brown with a $5 super chat. JD, where does NXT find all the fresh booty meat? Best in the business. Listen, man, that locker room is very lovely. That's all I'll say. Michelle with a $2 super chat. Does WWE trust Punk to make him champ in 2025? Yes. I do think so.
Hey, he's been able to stay healthy.
Yep.
His last several matches, he's had a Hell in a Cell and a War Games match back to back.
You know what he said last night that kind of bothered me. He's like, I feel better after the War Games match than I did Hell in a Cell, which I kind of understood why he said it, but it's not really a good look for the War Games match if you're saying, I came out of it okay, man, scot-free, man.
That War Games match was not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Not a way to put over the brutality of the match.
No. Michelle, thank you. Aman G with a 199. Rock is now favored to win the Rumble. Rock versus Cody. Eye emoji. Yeah, it's a possibility. Rock is going to do what Rock wants, so if he's in the Rumble, it is his choice only.
And also, I feel like if they have a plan for him, they're probably going to try to keep it on the down low.
Yeah.
They're not going to want their plans spread out all over the place, so... I saw people saying, Sap mentioned on his Raw review that Rock is not scheduled to be at WrestleMania, or at least not in a match at WrestleMania. But when it comes to Rock, you got to take what you hear with a grain of salt until we see it play out with our own eyes.
Those plans are locked inside Fort Knox. Only 3 people know. Nick Khan, Triple H, and Brian Gewirtz. That's it. Sidro with a $5 super chat. Why did the coffee cup file a police report? It was mugged. What's 2 inches wide, 6 inches long, and makes everyone go crazy? A $100 bill. Yes.
True.
Yeah.
It's true.
The first 2 were better, bro.
That might be the cleanest joke you've ever told.
Yes, really. And then
it's definitely different from Nuts and Bolts.
And then he says, #love you guys. Thank you, Sidra.
Thank you, Sidra.
Joker's voice for 2 months. War Games. EO 6. Rhea Bianca 4. Candice Raquel Bailey Sammy J 3. Formulaic is an understatement. Got Mike Cole, Jameson, and Ginger. Hail JD and Solo. It's a lot of War Games between all those individuals, Joker. That's a lot.
One of these years, we'll get Braun Breaker back in a War Games match. I think he was in one in NXT.
Yeah.
Right? The early 2.0 days.
Yeah, it was the 2.0 originals against the old NXT originals.
Yeah, so we'll have to get him back. We'll have to get him in the main roster one of these years.
And then, believe it or not, the WWE had the women's War Games all set up from NXT if they wanted to do that on the main roster, but, whatever. Snowman Khan with a 279. Maybe Jade faked the incident to screw Bianca. Nah. It's kind of a lame way to go about it.
Like the idea better that she just slipped and fell.
Yeah, well. And she landed the way that she did? Perfectly?
Perfectly. Her leg was like this way. Her body was going this way. She's a klutz. She slipped and fell. She wears those heels.
Camille the Klutz?
Well, Camille the Klutz. They did a Jade Cargill injury angle with Camille.
I saw. They're running out of ideas, bro.
Unbelievable.
And Camille said she quit on one. We didn't even talk about Dynamite. It was nothing really newsworthy, but she quit. She quit on Mercedes.
She did. But I think it was like a mercy killing with that angle. I mean, it had to happen.
Snowman Khan, thank you. Martin Smith, 37 months. The two goats of the IWC, thank you for making Tuesday nights the best day of the week. I appreciate your honesty and passion for the sport we love. Well, thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Martin.
King Mo Jackson with a $4.99. I don't know if you watched the TV show Penguin, but I think Paul Heyman could play the character. He has the waddle walk, the tummy, and the face for it. King Mo.
I have not, and you let me know, because my impression is that it plays off of kind of the universe that was created in the Batman movie with God, who played the Batman movie?
I forgot his name, but
the guy from Twilight.
I forgot his name, but it was a great movie. Did you watch it?
I didn't. It's like 3 hours long, isn't it?
You gotta watch it, bro. Yeah, I think you are going to like. If you like The Dark Knight, obviously it's not The Dark Knight. I know you do, but this is up there. I will say it's very good.
All right, I'll have to carve out some time. I'd rather watch that first and then get into the Penguin series.
No, I haven't watched the Penguin either. So, Hollywood guy with a $5 super. I read that there was a few reasons that Nakamura won. One, Triple H is giving him a major push again, and LA Knight is moving on to a major title run. Against who? Cody?
Yeah, what title?
Gunther? Come on, man. There's no major title run for LA Knight. The United States Championship is it. Unless he goes after the IC title. I don't know.
He probably should be on Raw, though.
Yeah, I agree.
He would benefit from that.
Yeah. My guy Black Wolf Inc. with a 19 months and two $5 super chats. He says, hey, guys. As a history buff, I believe Solo Sikoa is more like Napoleon. He took over France twice, but his greed led to his death in full isolation. I believe Jacob Fatu is plotting to overthrow Solo because while Solo has led them to victory, his defeats were due to him overextending his army. All right. Nice history lesson from my guy Black Wolf Inc. He also says, also, I know people think Seth will turn heel to feud with Punk, but there is no need because he already hates Punk. He doesn't need to be a heel yet.
Well, I mean, it's a matter of Punk, and this hate for Punk drives him to just go completely off the edge. So, he would have to attack other people like, Jey Uso and people that he's friendly with. He would have to, like, really go off the deep end.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, otherwise, if it's just Punk, I mean, again, let the fans choose. They're going to cheer for whoever they want to cheer for. But let's see where the character goes from here.
Thank you, Black Wolf. I know you said you couldn't super chat last night. Hopefully you got that fixed, man. That's usually not my problem. It's always a YouTube thing. But I appreciate you being here, brother. Lauren with a 2. Expected either Xavier or Kofi to turn, not both. Well, I think we were both in the same boat, and we loved how everything played out. Mr. Team Bring It with a $4.99. He says, Solo, I wanted to say thank you. I saw your tweet about your mom. It reminded me of great memories I shared with my mom. She passed away in October.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. And, it's just one of those things where I tell people, they'll message me all the time. It's just crazy how it's been 6 years at this point. But if you had a good relationship with her, not everybody does have a good relationship with their parents, but if you have memories and photos, you learn to appreciate that kind of stuff more. And hopefully you're able to do so too, but I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you, Mr. Team Bring It. Thoughts and prayers with you, brother. Nisha with a $4.99. If Judgment Day breaks up, what will happen to Carlito and McDonough? Great TNT tonight. You both killed it. Thank you, Nisha. I don't know.
He's trying to get with Raquel still, man. He even last night he made another comment. He wanted to go off with her, and I don't know. He's still a ladies' man. He's trying to shoot a shot.
He's Carlito cool. McDonough, I think, should stay in Judgment Day. I don't really give him much hope if he's on his own, but he's a fucking great wrestler, though.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nisha. We got Apex with a $1.99. Does Rock as High Chief outrank any tribal chief? Yes, he does. Lauren with a 7 in Super Chat. She says, John Cena is advertised for Raw, Netflix, Chamber, Mania, and Rumble. Cena is also the current favorite to win the Rumble. 29 days till his return. Excited. I'm excited, too. It's going to be a great year. I don't think Cena is the favorite, but he's certainly in the top 3 for sure. And then she says, Balor or Dom turning face. I would say Dom over Balor for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, but wait a minute now. If Balor gets kicked out of the Judgment Day and Dom takes over, then Balor would be the babyface in that situation, would he not?
Potentially. What about we turn Judgment Day babyface? You don't like it? No.
Liv? Can you turn Liv babyface? She's such a great heel.
Maybe she's a user. Maybe she's just using Dom, and then after she loses the championship, she leaves him.
What about this theory that people have floated that her and Finn have been in on this some kind of plot from the beginning, and then she ends up with Finn?
Well, again, that would be long-term storytelling because it all goes back to the hotel room key and Balor taking the key.
It does.
We'll see. I mean, I don't blame the man, but could be.
I don't either.
Nathan with a 5. Fightful. Gunther appears on July 4th Raw. Raw beats the Yankee Doodle Dandy out of Uncle Sam. R-Truth, July 4th, 2022, quote unquote. See, I knew I was right, man. That's the title of that.
Okay, but see, July of 2022. So you know whose creative that was at that point?
It was Vince.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because I think he stepped down. Well, no, the Wall Street Journal story first broke in June, and it wasn't until later in July. And that SummerSlam was like his last SummerSlam. And then after that is where Triple H took over creative. So absolutely a Vince idea.
Oh, but then Vince came back in January and blew the shit up.
Yes, but I'm saying the whole idea of the segment, it just screams Vince McMahon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, we'll never see that with Triple H. I mean, that's just fucking ridiculous. Lauren with a $2 super chat. Randy Orton isn't advertised for Raw on Netflix. They're not going to mention anything about Randy Orton until we see Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes at Saturday Night's Main Event. I'm assuming we'll see him there. Mr. Noob with a $5 super chat. It's clear Roman hasn't changed. Who's to say he doesn't beat Solo and step right into the new bloodline? I wouldn't hate it. Do you think we see Roman as a heel again, or do they keep playing him up as this babyface who is just an unchanged prick?
I think they want to. There's too much money to be made with the OTC thing.
Yeah.
I think they want to keep that going.
Hologram. I know you're not a new member because you got the Mustang emoji next to your name, so I think YouTube fucked up there. But thank you, brother, for your recommitment to the VIP section. Lauren with a $4 super chat. Do you guys think Orton will return as a heel? No. He will be a babyface. And then I'll be behind Rollins all the way against CM Punk. As long as CM Punk doesn't, as long as Rollins rather doesn't flail around and act all goofy, serious Rollins is the best Rollins, and CM Punk brings that out of him. So more of that.
Did you see the post-show press conference at Survivor Series where
did.
Sammy was like really engaged and giving a serious answer to this question, and Punk just kept like interrupting and being obnoxious, and Sammy was like, you could tell Sammy was annoyed by him. And then on Raw last night, at the beginning of the show, when Punk comes through the back and he shakes hands with Jay, and then he goes over and he shakes hands with Sammy, what he said to Sammy?
What he say? What he say to Sammy? I forgot last night.
He said like, sorry for the press conference.
Oh, yeah. Someone actually on Twitter posted a video redubbed where it was just at the press conference, just CM Punk and all his facial reactions throughout the night, him looking around. I'm like, as long as he's not getting into a fight with anybody, man, I don't give a shit as long as he's having a good time.
Yeah, but he was getting under Sammy's skin, so it was funny. Like last night, he goes, "Yeah, sorry for the press conference." Sammy's like, "Oh, okay, fine."
Yeah. Let him enjoy his fucking Mindy's.
Just keep him away from the press conferences, please. We don't need trouble.
Yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back in Wicker Park on January 17th. I'm gonna stop by Mindy's. I have to have some Mindy's right up the street. Basic with 199. Think we'll see Punk and Reigns versus Seth and Drew. Possibility. It's going to be a very interesting WrestleMania season. They're going to need some major heat on the road to WrestleMania. I think that could be it. I do think that Seth and Drew will be an alliance after what we saw last night. Mike with 31 months. Mike 43. Great Raw. Great TNT. I hope Drew beats Roman in 2025 pay-per-view. After all that, I wonder what Cena thinks of Cody helping Roman. We'll see Cena and Cody together. We may see that at WrestleMania for all we know. Terry's Odyssey with a 10. No message. Thank you, Terry's. Sidro. What do Edge, Stone Cold, Kurt Angle, and Ciampa all have in common? They all put their neck out for the E and still came back. Hashtag Big E debuts at Rumble. I guess that was that one didn't go over well with the audience, huh?
Didn't go over well with me either, to be fair.
Zeno Zero with a $5 super chat. Yo, Solo, I like the name. Might have seemed like nothing how fast you said it, but a heel New Day, the new way. Sounds cool.
The new way, man. I'm telling you. I mean, it just sells itself.
Christopher Holloway with a $4.99 with the way Big E's girlfriend has been cooking Woods and Kofi on X. Big E definitely has a manager in his back pocket if he returns. LOL. Yeah? Sure. Apex with a $1.99. Kofi Woods might now be more hated than Dom. Well, I mean, look what they did to Big E. I don't blame people for hating him or hating them more than Dominic.
It was a smart way, man. It was a smart way to get heat on those two.
Alex with a $5 super chat. Brother JD and Solo, much love as always. With the lackluster crowd reaction this past Saturday, can you see WWE reducing their pay-per-view shows in Canada? Well, they got Toronto coming up for the Elimination Chamber, so I think Toronto's a better crowd than Vancouver.
Yeah, I mean, Vancouver, look, it's not as if they had a lot to really get excited about, you know, in those early matches on the show. So it's not like we blame the crowd.
Yeah.
But for a city that hadn't had a major event in 26 years, I was expecting them to be, and it being Canada, I was surprised by how quiet they were for a large portion of the show. That was surprising. But in Toronto, in Montreal, these places that we see them in usually, those fans are pretty rabid. I don't think it's going to be an issue when they go back to those places.
Apex with the $1.99. KO, Drew, Seth, the anti-Bloodline, and Punk, I guess. Listen, I see a lot of people running with this narrative, man. We will see how it plays out, but I think there is going to be some sort of alliance there. Marcus with a $4.99. You think Nakamura in WWE is done? I still think his King of Strong style gimmick can still work. To be honest, this current gimmick reeks of Vince. No, this current gimmick is what Triple H tried to do to make him feel a little bit more important after Vince buried him. But the fact that he's been off TV mixed with the fact that he hasn't really had any wins, big wins, in quite a few years. It's just, it's just perception off his presentation. It's just not there.
The King of Strong style gimmick is done.
Yeah.
Like it's in the past. It's not coming back.
Alex with a $5 super chat. Are we 100% certain Braun Breaker is the future of WWE? Can you guys see him become a massive draw like Roman, Cody, and Punk are? Well, I mean, I think that's kind of an unfair comparison, Alex. But as far as who will be there when Roman, Cody, and Punk are not, it's going to be Braun Breaker. So we can only hope.
As far as a guy who's going to be world champion and will have WrestleMania main events under his belt, that's going to be Braun Breaker. You can't predict who the next Punk or who the next Roman is going to be. Look how many years it took for Roman to become what they wanted him to become. Just because Braun Breaker is great doesn't mean he's going to be the next big draw. Could he be? I think he's got all the tools to get there.
Yeah, listen, it took Roman 7 years to get to where he is now. We had to go through 7 years of garbage.
Well, then they finally gave us the heel turn that people were waiting for.
Yeah. Alex, thank you, brother. Furious Nation with a $4.99. Happy December, JD and Solo. My pick is Lyra to win the IC title tournament. Backups are Dakota and Kyrie if Lyra doesn't win. Thoughts? Our thoughts exactly, brother. Leo with a new membership. Thank you, Leo. Appreciate you, brother. Furious Nation with another 10. For the women's U.S. title, I'm picking Bayley to establish credibility to the title, but Naomi winning it, I'd be okay with that as well. Also, when ECW relaunched in 2006, if it was NXT or something else not named ECW, do you think it would have worked? Thoughts? As for the United States title, it's either going to be one or the other. I'm going Naomi, just more as far as a sentimental pick. And I think if it was anything else, it still would have failed.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that product it was on Sci-Fi, right? It was on television. Yeah, I just don't think it would have done well. I just feel like that isn't something people were going to tune in for no matter what. Not in the numbers that they were expecting.
Adam Hernandez with a $20 super chat. Obviously, don't know about the AEW women's contracts coming to an end. Any idea who jumps to WWE? I wish I could tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about their contract status, but I mean, if I had to pick a name or two from the AEW women's roster that I would love to see get a shot in WWE, Chris Statlander would be at or near the top of that list.
Chris, yeah, I mean, if we're just basing it, Willow, definitely. I could see, as far as who I think is jumping ship when her contract is up, I think Britt Baker's going to WWE, if she still wants to wrestle. Yeah, that too.
Jamie Hayter would be my pick.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate you, man. And Alex with a $5 super chat. Any updates on AJ Styles? Do you guys think he's done? I do not think he's done. I don't know what the diagnosis was about how long he would be out, but he did say the injury was serious. I'd love to have him back before WrestleMania. I just haven't heard a word about it.
He said, he did say what it was, and I could be getting this wrong. It was something like a Liz Frank, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, like LISFRANC, if you want to look it up. It's a type of, I don't know, I don't think it's a break, but it's some sort of ligament issue like in the middle of the foot. And apparently it's very frustrating. So that's the diagnosis. As far as how long, he hasn't said, so it's hard to tell.
And the Bastard 97 with a 20 months to the GOAT JD. So Buddy won the 4-way at Full Gear. Doesn't get nothing, but Commander places juice in the Continental Classic. Make it make sense, Tony, please.
Well, again, they want somebody to lose. If that's his role, I'd rather it be Commander losing a bunch of matches than Buddy Matthews.
Yeah, and Brody King is in the tournament, so he's representing the House of Black. It would be kind of a little overkill if two members were in the tournament. So.
And that's why I assumed Buddy wasn't in it, but then have Brody King win the 4-way at Full Gear.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that would have made more sense.
Yeah. And that is it, guys. We need 5 more likes for 1,000. If you guys want to help us out there, that would be greatly appreciated. And we are coming to an end here on episode 75. We love you guys. Thank you for all the great support. We had a nice 2,800 in here live tonight. And I'm going to leave it to Marcus here with a $4.99. Get the title off Moxley, scrap Rampage, cut about 55% of the roster, and put the world title on Jay White with a lengthy run. Hashtag how to save AEW. Well, I don't know, man.
I like Jay White as much as the next person, but I don't think having a lengthy title run is necessarily what's going to save AEW. But I think Jay White is great, and I'm glad he's at least in the mix.
Yep.
So I like that.
And that's it, guys. I'm going to leave it with Solomonster to sound us off here for episode 75.
Well, I just say this. I mean, we had a lot of really fun stuff to talk about tonight. A lot of it coming off that show that we saw last night. And it goes to something that the both of us talk about a lot on our respective platforms, which is when you have great stories to tell. Right? This is episodic television that we're talking about every week. And if you don't have interesting stories, you don't really have much of anything. So it's fun to be able to dive into this stuff and talk about what might happen and where it might go. It makes these shows even more fun than they usually are. And I'm excited now, going into the new year. It should be a fun time in wrestling. And this is always a busy time of year. This is always our best time of year. So doubly looking forward to it and looking forward to you guys being a part of it.
Absolutely. And we will be right back here next week, guys, for episode 76 of TNT. We have Dynamite tomorrow. We'll be live on our respective platforms for that. More Continental Classic. Looks like a decent show tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. And then Friday Night SmackDown, man, the Fallout show from Survivor Series. Will Roman Reigns find out what the favor is between Paul Heyman and CM Punk? We'll find out what's next for Cody and Kevin Owens going into Saturday night's main event. We got a lot to talk about. And it's going to be another great week. And thank you guys very much for all of your support here. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. Continue to leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you thought of all the top stories in discussion tonight. And please, if you guys want to follow Solomonster on social media and on YouTube, as well as this guy right here, make sure you guys check the description down below of this very video. Everything you need is right there. Once again, guys, thank you. And we'll see you next week for episode 76. Of Tuesday Night Titans. We'll see you later.